Alrighty, I am live, and I'll see how this goes. I changed up a couple of my streaming settings again, and hopefully it will lead to an overall smoother experience. But like with any settings change, there's a good chance that I somehow just made it worse. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. We'll just see how that goes. If you're wondering why there's some dings, it's because I'm trying to buy something. And apparently, people seem to think that someone showing interest in your item means that you should double the price for no reason. And that's kind of pointless when there's plenty of others that get listed. So I'm just waiting for one to get listed that is what I want and at the price I want. And so far, the what I want is not coming through, but I'm sure it will. And I'm definitely not paying 65 exalts for an item that shouldn't be 20. Because someone had it listed for 4 days at 8 exalts, and I messaged them for it, and they magically decided that it was now worth 65 because someone was interested in it. And it was a good ring at 8 exalts. It is not a good ring at 65 exalts. Which is always fun. I think the problem is we're so late in Arch Nemesis that people are just looking at Standard going, oh, I could totally make that money on Standard instead. Which, if you play Standard, maybe you can. Maybe you can't. Yep. Regardless of if you can or can't, I'm just not going to be bothered with it. I'm just going to wait for another one to come along because I know one will. There are items where I would buy it for 65x and be really happy that I paid 65 for it. There's definitely items in PoE that exist like that. This ring was not one of them. It's basically just this ring, but slightly better and with actual prefixes. Which, for 8 exalts, good deal. But for 65, I guarantee you I can turn this into a better ring for well under 65. So, worst case, if I don't get a good ring, I'm just going to do a bunch of Reforge keeping suffixes on this one. So 2 things. First, I do have a live search up now, but I did not live search it originally. What I did is I just normal searched and the ring had been up for 8 exalts and it was listed 4 days ago, which means it had been up for a significant amount of time. Second of all, there were a bunch of other rings that didn't quite have the stat distribution I wanted. This one has the T1 Dex, T1 Int, and T3 Chaos Res. That one had T1 Dex, T1 Int, T2 Chaos Res. There's a bunch up with T3 Chaos Res that are between 3 and 7 exalts. So it was actually priced exactly correctly. And it had pretty good prefixes. It had T2 life on it, and then a medium tier elemental damage of attacks. It was completely priced correctly, but they decided that it was now worth 65 exalts because after 4 days, someone showed interest in it. Which is very, very dumb. Usually, if someone live searches something, or if someone posts something and I'm live searching it, and I message them, and they take it down after I immediately messaged, I get that. Usually, if it's an 8x item and you're putting it up for 65, that's way more than it's actually worth. but I get mispricing things. This was not that. This was an item that had been up for 4 days and had not sold at 8 exalts for 4 days. So, yeah. Little bit dumb, to say the least. But for now, I'm going to start doing some bosses. And I'm just going to be boss rushing, so I'm not going to worry about any of this. Yeah, taxes generally turn your brain into soup.
He did not hesitate to inflict pain. Now, all he feels is intense, unstoppable agony.
That sounds about right. Standing in that's maybe not the best idea, but it's okay. Ooh, free speed shrine. I guess I'll pick up the Chaos Orb. Problem with the speed shrine, I'm struggling to control my character. The struggle is real. I'm too fast. This is a problem with high move speed builds. You just kind of go in a general direction and you have no fine control over your character. I don't know how people can play like this permanently.
A contest for the ages. Life is so brittle.
Heal up. Perfect. It's gonna be Phoenix.
It's mine.
That stretches the sanity
All right,
of the mind.
they're both dead. I'll start making a little shaper symbol over there. See how many of these I get. Close my eyes and click. Yeah, that sounds about right.
He did not see value in a new life. Now, new life surrounds him.
I don't think I will ever play a lab runner. That just sounds absolutely miserable to me. I am glad that other people enjoy it. But to me personally, it sounds miserable. Just like how Heist. I'm glad that other people enjoy it because I like using the stuff that comes from Heist. But personally, no way. Couldn't do it. Oh. Winged Abyss. That's a relatively useful one. I should be doing these. I shouldn't be ignoring Alva.
Have a look at where you're going. Let's go.
How much did I spend on? Good question. So here's the problem. When I started playing this build, I started with around 200 raw exalts. Actually, no, I started with around 150 raw exalts. When I stopped playing this build, I ended with around 250 raw exalts. So I have no idea how much I spent. Hey, welcome, Catmaster. So I live stream here on YouTube because Twitch is very anti-small streamer. And one complaint, like the number one complaint I heard about my Twitch stream over and over and over again, and I guess about isn't necessarily correct because it wasn't about me or my stream, but when I was streaming on Twitch, the number one complaint I heard was, I'd love to watch you, but you don't have quality options, and my internet is potato. And there was no way to guarantee quality options except to restart. And sometimes I'd have to restart for a solid 20, 30 minutes. And I just hated streaming for that reason, because I'd be like, okay, how many times do I have to restart the stream? All right, 1, 2, 3. Oh my God, a half hour's passed. This is so dumb. And on top of that, my audience is here on YouTube. And so far more people watch me. If I was streaming on Twitch, there would probably be, I'd guess, 20 people watching right now. And I don't know how many are watching, but I'm gonna guess it's more than 20.
Good job, Exile.
Let's check. Yep, there are 35. Which, it's not that I necessarily care about strict numbers. Like, oh, I need to have 100 people to watch. No, it's nothing like that. But I definitely like having people be able to tune in and actually find the content if I'm going to be taking the time to stream and all that. Because it might not seem like it. It might seem like, oh, I'm just doing random stuff that I have. I do actually prepare content for my streams. Yeah, like some option. Or even let the streamer pay for quality options. I don't know how much it would cost. I would imagine it would scale with how many average viewers you get. But just something for quality options. I get that it's expensive and Twitch isn't made of infinite money, even though Amazon kind of is. But just something. Let there be some way to get quality options on Twitch. Until that is a thing, I have absolutely zero plans to even consider Twitch. If it's a thing, they'd have to drop their exclusivity, because at that point, what I'd want to do is I'd want to stream to both Twitch and YouTube. But since Twitch has the stupid, you must only stream to Twitch if you're streaming to Twitch thing, or you can't be monetized, I don't. And I have no plans to. And clicking is hard. I'm trying to exit.
Good job.
But my shrine is OP, and now I'm going to lose it, because I'm going here. All right, I'm leaving. If you get under 100 concurrent viewers, you should not be streaming on Twitch. End of story. Unless your goal is to just do it for fun. But if your goal is, this is my job, I need to make money off of this, I need to grow my business, you should not be streaming on Twitch if you get under 100 concurrents. Because you will have basically no visibility and basically no growth. Wait, did I kill them both that fast? No, Hydra's right here. Okay. I was like, where's the other one? I don't see the other one. Yeah, I tried, and they just never got back to me. I might try again. The only problem with that is then I don't make any money from my Twitch stream. And it just seems weird for me to put things on a platform that benefits the platform but doesn't really make me any money. So I'm not sure I like streaming on Twitch for that reason. See, I've just never cared about emotes or emojis. So that's, I know that's a big thing for Twitch, but I've personally just never cared. And so that's another reason. All right, so there's a secret to this build's defenses. It is Aegis Aurora. That's true, it doesn't cost me anything extra. Mageblade is not actually the secret here. Mageblade is helpful, but this is the secret to my defenses. Because what this does is it turns my energy shield from normal energy shield, where you get hit and it goes away, to essentially permanent ward. Yeah, that part's true. I guess it's just the conceptual thing of I don't like Twitch making money off of me while preventing me from making money off of them with stupid policies, if that makes sense. That if Twitch was an entirely unmonetized platform and it was just about community, I'd have no problem with it. But I just don't like the idea of Twitch as a platform making money off of me while having policies that prevents me from making money on their platform. Which is probably just a weird me thing that I should get over, to be honest. Although the fact that they now have at least, I forget if I did it once or twice. I know I definitely emailed them once, just never bothered to reply when I tried to cancel the affiliate status, doesn't really make me very confident that they're going to actually do it. The build is, I would say, done at this point. It is very good. It is way better than I was expecting it to be, scarily enough.
Shadow, rise and fight.
I did not expect this to be that good. I expected it to be kind of mediocre. This doesn't feel very mediocre, to be honest.
That stretches the sanity.
Do I? Yeah, I'll do the Metamorph. I thought about, do I do the Gauntlet this time because I finally have a computer that's capable of it? And then after the recent patch, several times I just crashed to desktop and died as a result of crashing to desktop. And I remembered that no matter how good your computer is, PoE is not a hardcore viable game. Because I know that the second I died to my game crashing to desktop, that would be a complete rage quit for me. I'm going to be honest with you, Hans. Is it Hans or Hans? If I played Cast on Crit Forbidden Right with this league's gear, I probably wouldn't want to play anything else either. I don't know why I keep going to do this. I guess just habit.
One of my captives hid a beast within his heart. Now, so
Wait, 40%? Twitch's takeoff of ads is more like 85%. Twitch's takeoff of ads is absurd. Their revenue split on bits is actually pretty decent. I believe it's about 70-30. On subs, it's about 50-50, although it does depend a little bit based on regional pricing, which is not as good as YouTube. YouTube is 70-30 for subs. Well, the equivalent of subs, which is channel memberships. But on advertisements, Twitch completely screws over all of its content creators. Thank you. I am glad you like it. That Expedition series, I will admit, the ROG video was a pain to make. I almost didn't make it. I almost gave up when I had to redo it. I was like, oh no, I'm spending like 50 hours into this and I have to reshoot it because I did really bad planning and I was going to do voiceover and that just turned into a nightmare. And I almost just didn't do it. And then I was like, nope, I'm going to do it. It's going to take another way too much time. It's like another 10-15 hours to make that video. It was a nightmare. But I'm really glad I did. So I don't know if it's quite the same as when I was looking into it, but I distinctly remember that because Twitch uses regional pricing, if someone's, say, Australian and they sub to you, you get the equivalent of, let's just say it's 50% in US dollars, but they often pay significantly more than the equivalent of $5 US. They pay more like $7.50 US because of exchange rates, and Twitch just keeps the $5. Yeah, I'm really glad I ended up making the ROG video. It is, out of all the videos I've made recently, definitely my favorite. It's the sort of video where I watch it and I go, I'm really proud of that. Not that I watch most of my videos and go, I hate this, I wish I'd never made it, or anything like that. I like most of my videos. But this one stands out to me as, yeah, I'm very happy with this, and I'm going to do more videos like it in the future as a result. Hey, how's it going, Shaq? And so that's something where I'm very glad that despite the issues, I did end up finishing it. Yep, congrats. That sounds about right for Cast on Crit Forbidden Right. Yeah, ROG is really good money. The scary part about ROG and how good the money is, he is even better if you do him in the first couple weeks. which is why when I get into more of the price checking for ROG, I'm definitely going to do a follow-up video in 3.18 that gets more into how to price check for ROG. And all that. Ooh, a fragment of a Minotaur. Yes, Cast on Crit Forbidden Rite is arguably the best build of this league. It is insanely good still. I have been playing PoE since very early in the open beta. So, closing on 10 years now, I believe?
Sanity of the mind.
Wait, let me go over to the website for a second and check. I can tell you the exact date because of the account creation date. My account was made July 27th, 2013. So I've been playing since July 27th, 2013. Fun builds for solo Southbound to recommend. Yes, I do. Inquisitor, Fire Trap, Righteous Fire. That was a very fun build, and it should work perfectly in solo Southbound. And now I need to do the Formed, which I didn't get as a drop, which is unfortunate. Wait, wrong tab. Formed, here we go. Luckily, I have a couple of them. Conflict, blah, 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 blah. None of those matter, but it's low rarity. Does this matter? No. Better. Irritating. That's going to be really irritating, but should be fine. We're only talking Formed here. Oh, September 12th, 2011. Now that's an old one. That's a true legacy account. Yeah, who might be in chat who might be putting together something in the near future on Fire Trap / Righteous Fire Inquisitor that would be SSF friendly?
Time to up the stakes. Twin terrors.
Yeah, I heard about this game because I was playing Diablo 3 at the time, and a good friend of mine was like, you should try this other game. It's kind of like Diablo 3. And back then, PoE was super janky. Okay, PoE is still super janky. But look, we're sustaining maps and an awakened burning damage. Huh. I don't think I have any use for that, but cool. Back when I started, I think, yes, Piety was the last boss. They had Vival Oversoul and they had Brutus, and then they had Piety. Yeah, and that's how I got into PoE. So I think I'm going to just start a collection of the random good stuff that I get while doing this. I'm not keeping track of how many maps because I'll just add maps to the tally later.
One of my captors hid a beast within his heart. Now his true self can be seen by all.
The worst part about PoE back then, and this was especially true if you played hardcore, which a lot of people did, because hardcore was the more popular way to play the game. There was no lockstep. And if you want to know what old PoE was like, put the game into predictive mode rather than lockstep. It's an option right here. Put it into predictive and see how that feels, and see how it feels to get desynchronized from the servers. That is what you had to put up with constantly. There was a chat command that you could use that I don't know if it does anything if I type it now, but it was /OOS for out of sync, and it would resynchronize your character with the servers. Yep. That's how you know that someone is an OG. And so the first thing that people used auto hotkey for in PoE was not a logout macro. It was an out of sync macro. And you just hit that constantly. Yes, predictive was even worse back then. What was his name? Tor Olgaso. When he would do his leap slam. That was the worst thing, because even if it didn't hit you, the game would think it hit you. And it would stun you. And then you were going to be desynced. And after that, just good luck. And every time he'd cast it, you'd re-desynchronize. It was absolutely awful. I guess what you'd have to do is you'd have to not only play on predictive, but you'd have to play on predictive from a gateway that's nowhere near you. So like, I'm in the US, I'd have to go to the Australia gateway and play on predictive for it to be like it was then. And for those of you who live down under, just connect to the DC gateway and put yourself on predictive and see how fun it is. It is a miracle that any of us stuck with PoE, and it is a testament to how good the game's underlying systems were.
A veil of safety and
Yup.
security.
If enemies weren't taking damage, or if enemies seemed to be doing their attack animations through walls and doors. Because sometimes one of the tip-offs would be that something behind a door is attacking you, because the game thinks you actually through the door. Exalt were for maps.
Struggle or strangle.
I also remember Eternal Orb crafting, which was for a very long time absolutely the most insane kind of crafting that PoE has seen. Which seems strange when you think of what's been added since.
Invitation to a true display of ferocious survivalism.
Yeah, no one knew that you could vendor gems for GCPs. Just no one knew that. That's how small the game was. And now, anytime GGG adds anything, people find it within hours. They're like, I'm going to data mine this. Oh, I can't data mine it. Okay, I'll just test all the permutations. Because the PoE player base is basically a million monkeys with typewriters. And as much as I look back fondly on some of the things I did back then, I don't think I'd play a PoE Classic. I know there's some people who absolutely would. And I think if GGG brought PoE Classic back as just like a 1 or 2 day thing, that would be awesome. And ran some events, just so people could see how it was, I would very quickly not enjoy PoE Classic. The pathfinding is still weird, but oh my god, it was so much worse. Back then, I don't think half of the movement skills that we use today could even be used, because they just get stuck on everything. And things still get stuck on everything, but it was so much worse. That would be hilarious. I thought hard mode was interesting, but the more I've heard about it, and honestly, the more it's been delayed, the more I realize I'm just not going to enjoy it. Because it's all the things I don't like from the events, like no crafting bench, in combination with a really tiny player base, because I don't think that many people are going to even try it. And so I thought I was going to play hard mode trade when it first launched. Not as a permanent thing, but just as a to see. And now I'm pretty sure I'm going to give it a pass unless I see an absolutely massive number of players trying it. Oh, yes. So old PoE movement skills made shield charge look amazingly optimized.
What a mysterious presence, healed and fight
Now
on.
she's going to jump. Sadly, I can't quite kill her before she jumps.
Life is so brittle.
So the question is, if Eternal Orbs can drop in hard mode, will they get sent to standard, or will they get sent to something else? But also, I don't really need Eternal Orbs anymore. There's so many pseudo-Eternal Orb effects. Like Harvest. Although, to be completely honest, I'm pretty sure that Harvest itself needs a huge rework.
One of my captors
Mostly because it keeps doing permanent damage to every other crafting system in PoE. And yes, I am going to rant about that. Every time that GGG has made a crafting system in the past, before Harvest, it built on and improved other crafting systems. They make Harvest, and it's like, yeah, let's just make everything else worse now. I think hard mode will be good, but it's the sort of thing where it is good, and I also have no desire to do it. Yeah, see, I don't like the idea of a sandbox mode because I don't think that people would find things as fulfilling. There's the idea that players will optimize the fun out of anything if given the choice. And a sandbox mode is a really good way to give people a way to optimize the fun out of their game. If you're wondering, I'm not specifically dodging the Syndicate. They just aren't keeping up with me enough to get hit by my wave of conviction and die. It's not my fault that I'm outrunning them. It's their fault.
It's over, Leo.
Oh, I think I hit them finally.
A contest for the ages. Resist the assault. Mortal flesh is so fallible.
Perfect.
This one.
that stretches the sanity of the mind.
Now, that said, I don't feel the same way about POB as I do about an in-game sandbox mode. And the reason I don't feel the same way about POB is POB is all on paper. It's all napkin math. You don't get to see how a build feels and how a build actually plays.
One of my captors felt no emotion.
And you can see that all the time in some of the mistakes that I often call out on my channel in terms of builds, where I will say, hey, this build does 100 million DPS in POB. In actual Path of Exile, you're going to do like 7 mil, but also you're going to do 0 mil because you're dead most of the time. A lot of my movement speed in the last map was from the acceleration shrine that I had. Aside of that, I'm using Withering Step, which is a movement speed buff. It gives elusive, and I have a Mage Blood on, so this flask is permanently up. That was slightly risky of me. I don't know if I can take a direct hit from DD on this version of a character. I really think that the thing that prevents builds from being played isn't POB itself, it's lack of proper education. Because on so many of my builds, like my RF build, super solid build. Righteous Fire Inquisitor. There were so many people who said this build looks unplayable, the DPS is only 5 mil. Meanwhile, me, killing things like the Feared, Maven, Crystal King at depth 500 or something. 100% Delirious, Sim Wave 30. The Wave 30 was deathless, by the way. On a supposedly unplayable build, whose DPS was too low, because people are so used to stupid numbers on paper that mean nothing. I don't think a sandbox mode would help new players understand the game. I think it would cause new players to fall into bad habits and traps. Any player that approaches PoE from a mindset where experimenting in a sandbox mode would be helpful for them, would be able to do a lot of that in a live environment. And anyone who doesn't, who needs that sandbox with infinite items, is going to fall into the trap of, well, I have really expensive gear in the sandbox, but I don't know how to get that actual expensive gear in game.
For the ages, with exotic rewards to match.
Yeah, uptime is the key. And uptime is a thing that it's very hard for people to understand without having played a build for themselves. Let's roll and corrupt these since I have a bunch now. Because I don't think there's any mods that I... Oh no, I can't do aura. Well, I can do aura effect, but I refuse. It's miserable. All right. I'm just going to do one of the 70%. Yeah, 5 mil highly consistent DPS is honestly excellent. You really don't need more than that for most content. Oh, I shouldn't. Yeah, I shouldn't stand right next to Phoenix like that. That was dumb of me. I was definitely very distracted reading chat there.
Temporal tears. Handle that, Shadow.
So yeah, this build is immortal until it just gets one shot because you stand in something that shreds your maximum resistances.
Tight tethers. Time bends to
I guess in the case of certain dot builds though, like this build, technically you can be dead and still dealing damage. At least for a few seconds. I think I have 4 seconds of DPS uptime after I die. But if you're a hit build, the minute you die, you're no longer dealing damage. Your DPS has stopped. So if we're talking about just making gear, that sort of sandbox does exist. You can make gear on Craft of Exile as much as you want, and with very few exceptions, it works exactly like real PoE crafting. So for making gear and learning crafting processes, I agree that is a helpful aspect that PoE doesn't have. We do have Craft of Exile though, and despite a couple of its UI things being a little bit frustrating to navigate, to be honest, overall it does make for a very good analog. Yes, being tanky is definitely better than being glass cannon-y. I hate to tell you, Shaq, this build has 7 digits of DPS. In fact, this build probably has about 8 digits of DPS. On average. I don't know, it's high 7, low 8. Because I think I have 7.5 mil with nothing up, and then 12 mil with everything up. And so depending on if my Sin's Rebirth is up, if I have EO, and if I have Punishment active, depends exactly where I fall in that range. Fractured mods on Craft of Exile are the worst. Hey, thank you very much. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for the support. I have mixed feelings in terms of crafting and Eldritch currencies. On the one hand, that's exactly what my first reaction was. On the other, as I used them more, I've kind of changed my mind. I don't think they really help you understand that much. They're kind of like baby's first crafting. Like, even before essences, baby's first crafting. And essences used to be baby's first crafting in PoE. I guess it sounds a little bit derogatory when you put it that way, but it's not meant as such. It's meant as, this is a really good, simple breakdown. But I find Eldritch currencies are a little limiting because they don't introduce you to how tags work. Which I feel is a bit problematic, and it's a problem that's also shared by essences. Necromancer builds. Are we talking about caster necromancers or are we talking about minions? If we're talking about minions, I hate how minion AI plays in this game, so I generally avoid them. If we're talking about necromancer caster builds, then I like them. I think they're in an interesting spot where if you can get the right Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame, they're absolutely insane. But they're also slightly overshadowed by the fact that there's so much generic power in both Occultist and Inquisitor at the moment. And that for a lot of builds, you're just better off as an Occultist or an Inquisitor using something like Corpse Pact, for example. Skeleton Mage. A lot of people seem to like it. Don't play it if you have a potato computer. That's about all my thoughts on it. Yeah, fossils are great. I think fossils are a great form of crafting because item tags do matter and they teach you a lot about how tags work and interact. Fossils are one of PoE's best crafting systems. And it's not the best just because it encourages mods. It's the best because it also blocks mods. Remove non-X, add X from Harvest was also brilliant, and I wish they leaned more into that kind of thing. Because that's what really pushes people to learn and understand the depth of the game beyond the surface level of I click X and get Y. Yeah, I recently switched to a 3080 and an i7 12700K, and the difference has been night and day in terms of builds that I could play before versus builds that I can play now. I would not have been happy with this build before. I would have been absolutely miserable. Why does Hydra run away so much? It's like she doesn't want to die. Oh, almost an RF hat. Oh, 92% and you died. I'm sorry, that's rough. That is a rough death. For some reason, I always find deaths at like 90% to a level extra soul crushing. I can die at 89%, whatever. Die at 91%, oh god, why? I don't know. It's probably just all in my head.
One of my captors wore many faces, yet kept her true face.
I haven't been checking my Ring live search. I heard it ding a couple times. No. Nothing that I really care about. Got it. Yeah, the only time it stutters at this point is when it's some sort of connection issue, which usually happens when I forget that I'm connecting to DC instead of Canada East, because I swear the DC server just has issues. Either that or it's the DC gateway. It's probably the gateway and not the server, to be honest. And it's that weird stutter where the game stops and then runs fast, which, yeah. But aside of that, it's been totally fine. Even when recording fairly high frame rate, fairly high quality streaming, etc. Why Wave of Prediction? Because it has a massive amount of base damage and it's base fizz, which means you can scale it via fizz as extra. Yeah, I played Seismic Trap in 3.16. I could not bring myself to play it in 3.17 because Exsanguinate Trap was already at my lower bounds of this is an annoying skill to play. And Seismic Trap now is just worse Seismic Trap from 3.16. And I don't like playing skills that feel like worse versions of other things that I've already played. If you'd never played it before, though, I'm sure it feels amazing still. Yeah, I've found that if I connect from either Canada East or Texas, I have a much better time than if I connect through DC. Even California, usually I have less issues. Despite being farther from California than any of the other locations. I think they need to design more systems of crafting to work more like fossils, rather than changing how fossils work or moving them.
I want this ancient power as part of my stock at hunt.
Yep. Oh, right. So Phoenix, little known fact, Phoenix resistance shreds by a significant amount. If you're not paying attention, it's very easy to die to Phoenix. I was ignited there and or on burning ground, and because I'm so tanky against hits, I wasn't paying attention, but I ran away from the Phoenix, and due to the res shred, the burning ground just killed me, and or the ignite just killed me. This is why I'm not level 99 on this build, because I just do really dumb stuff in very rippy content that is designed specifically to negate my defenses. Because most of my defenses are against getting hit, not against damage over time.
Mortal flesh is such a thing we've been hiding. I simply must see more.
Of the mind.
Yeah, there is a lot of different content that you can experience in Path of Exile. Like, a lot of content.
One of my captors hid a beast within his heart. His true self can be
If you're wondering, I put Arch Nemesis back on my filter last night because I was like, oh, I'll do the Arch Nemesis 3. Before I had it off my filter, I need to just take it off. I am way too lazy to actually put all the Arch Nemesis 3 stuff together. Fog crafting. I like that. Oh, frog. My bad. I kind of like fog instead, though. I don't know. Maybe Tane can distill monsters and make them into alchemical fog. And then you use the alchemical fog on items to change it. All the essences. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't care about money. I'm going to play one more build, and I bought most of the items or crafted most of the items for it already. And after that, I'm going to be done. I will still be making some content for 3.17 because there's several video ideas that I haven't finished, but I won't be actively playing as much. Mostly because trade is finally kind of dying out. And that is usually when my interest wanes. And also, of all the build and mechanics ideas that I was like, this sounds cool, I'm kind of running out of them. I'm sure there are more, but none that specifically appealed to me. I've never found feral to be particularly rare. I usually get about 1 or 2 a league. But I wonder if that's because of the types of content that I do, and I don't re-roll very often. And when I do, I very quickly progress out of low-tier content, because Ferric Tiger Alpha does not drop in low-tier content. So unfortunately, one of the things about YouTube is I never figured out how to get a bot that actually works, because YouTube auto-blocks paste bin links.
Time bends to my will.
But you can find my build in the description via my profile.
Struggle or strangle.
I do not have a guide on this build, and I will not be making a guide on this build. I will be showcasing it, but I'll be showcasing it with the explicit warning that you probably shouldn't copy this.
Struggle or strangle.
This doesn't feel like the sort of build that is going to be conducive to copying. Just based on my own experiences gearing it, and the fact that it, in some ways, is very... Oh, I don't want to stand in that. I dashed right into it, but I definitely don't want to stand in it. In a lot of ways, it is a counterintuitive playstyle. Well, no, not playstyle. It's a counterintuitive build style. It's very straightforward to play. You just cast Wave of Conviction and then everything dies. I think that both the bow buffs and the self-cast buffs did absolutely nothing to solve those archetypes' actual problems.
Tight tethers.
And so, complete dud. What self-casting needed, and it kind of amazes me that this wasn't solved because GGG even talked about it. They said the problem with self-cast is you have to stand still, and so you often feel squishy. We're just going to give you more damage. So how does that solve standing still? What I would have rathered is defensive buffs that only happen while you're self-casting. This is a Wave of Conviction Ignite Blackflame Occultist. Try saying that 5 times fast. In terms of bows, kind of the same problem. Bows are glass cannon builds. And we're in a game that is specifically made to punish glass cannon builds. You can build them and you will be punished for it. Because PoE is very much a game where it doesn't stop you from doing things, even if they're bad or wrong. And it just punishes you. It says, hey, you can do this. Also, this is going to hurt.
Another challenger.
And after the defensive buffs, GGG did a lot of things specifically to broadcast that it is the wrong way to build if you are ignoring defenses, because defenses are so much easier to build now.
We kept waiting.
I think there's a chance that they get nerfed, but I'm not sure if they will or they won't. That's always an odd one because the build doesn't work on low investment. And GGG has a mixed history of high investment builds. Sometimes they kill them, and other times they leave them for quite a while. Think Aura Stacker. For a long time, Aura Stacker was just left mostly as is because it was exclusively high budget.
No emotion. He did not hesitate to inflict pain. Now, all he feels.
On the other hand, Crystallized Omniscience, that I think is going to get some sort of adjustment. I don't know which approach we're going to take, though. One approach could be nerfing the objective power of Crystallized Omniscience, which would be done by doing something like 1% pen per 15 Omniscience instead of 1% pen per 10. I think it's 10. On the other hand, it could be done by nerfing rarity. They could just make Crystallized Omniscience 1 in 100 to drop, or 1 in 1000 to drop, which means you have to spend more money to get your Crystallized Omniscience. I don't think that's the approach they'll take. I think if they're going to increase investment, what they will do is change the attribute requirement per Omniscience. Because right now, attribute requirement is satisfied by 15 to 25%, and I could see them changing it to 10 to 15, which means on an average build, you'd need around, I think, 1600 Omniscience to wear most items, up from like 900. Where at the top end, if you have a multi-mirror Omniscience build, it's not actually that OP compared to multi-mirror investment in other builds. But if you have a relatively cheap Omniscience build, let's just say 20 to 30x, it is leagues better than other things because you're basically just using Ulnatol's Vow. So it wouldn't surprise me if they left the power alone and made it so that you had to invest in it more. Yeah, poor Starforge and Edzir's disfavor.
The age. Mortal flesh is so fallible.
Although for some item slots, they are okay with rares just being really powerful. Like belts. There are so many really powerful belts, or I guess uniques over rares, I should say, that I could see them also just turning Neck into a slot where uniques are allowed to be powerful and flourish. I seem to be getting a very imbalanced number of fragments. Let's see if I'll die to Phoenix again, because I'm only half paying attention. No, I did not mean to start that. No, I don't want to start my video editing software while streaming. I did not mean to click that. You can go away for now, Resolve.
One of my captors refused redemption. He did not see value in a new
That
life.
said, one thing that I do think is a little bit concerning is specifically Ulnatol's vow, and the fact that Crystallized Omniscience is kind of just a better version of Ulnatol's vow in a lot of ways. And so I feel like if they're making Omniscience require more investment, Ulnatol's vow should be buffed. With how easy it is to make money in 3.17, I don't want to hear it. 30x is a cheap build. If you play one build all league and you don't reroll, I would be impressed, even if you're only playing a couple hours a day, if your build is worth less than 30 exalts by this point. But most people shoot themselves in the foot and they reroll constantly. And so their builds never get to that value threshold. Also, most people don't realize how much value they end up with because they're like, oh yeah, I leveled this gem up to 2120 myself and I corrupted it, so it's not worth anything. And they're just casually using a 5 exalt gem. I've seen that so many times where people tell me, hey, my build, I can't figure out upgrades and I don't have any money. I'm like, you have a level 2120 gem just sitting there that is on a random utility skill that's 5 exalts because other people use it as a main skill. Sell that. I literally saw someone once who was using Toxic Rain 2120 for Withering Touch in a Toxic Rain meta, who was saying they were broke and had no money. And that jewel was 7 exalts at the time because it was fairly early on. Speaking of slight lag spikes, there was a little bit of one there. Seems to be clearing up, though. I don't want to talk about how much I've spent leveling characters, because I get to like 80% EXP, and then I go, I'm too lazy to finish leveling. Early on, I did it in Coward's Trial Rotas. I'm pretty sure I went currency positive on those. But everything else, I've definitely just thrown away money on either pure Chiula stones or on 5-ways. No main damaging skill can work with cast while channeling because it's garbage.
This one's uncommon might will make for mortal flesh is so fallible.
Cast while channeling is purely for utility. It is never for your main damaging skill. And I know someone's going to say, yes, but with X investment, you can make it work. Yes, with X investment, you can make anything work. But to make cast while channeling even half as good as self-cast or cast on crit will require at least twice, if not 3 times as much currency. Secrets of Suffering isn't that expensive. It's only 4 or 5 now. It was quite expensive for a while, though. Yeah, that's an example of cast while channeling as a utility skill. Oh no.
One of my captors wore many faces.
I feel like at that point you would maybe be better off, if you can at all manage the mana costs, you'd be better off putting in a Spell Echo than a cast while channeling. Cast while channeling lowers the DPS by so much. It's absurd.
Just in time.
These days, I would hard cast. I wouldn't even cast while channeling Whispering Ice. I would hard cast Whispering Ice. They really did cast while channeling dirty in the recent changes because it was already so far behind, and they gave it a comparable damage nerf to cast on crit. And so now, anytime you would have used cast while channeling in the past, you are better off self-casting if your goal is for a damaging skill.
Good job, Exile. Time to go.
Yeah, Harvest Essence swaps and also Harvest Scarab upgrades are really good money. I have made so much money off of those when I've done a lot of Harvest in the past. Now, I don't know if it's still true, but you used to be able to bulk buy scouting reports and just roll all of your Kirak missions to do almost exclusively Harvest. And the scouting reports were like 3 or 4 to a chaos. So they were super, super cheap. And if you got 1 harvest every 5 or 6 scouting reports, which by the way, you'd probably get more. You get more like 1 every 2 or 3. You would make so much profit. I don't think it's worth doing at this point in the league. But early on, it was great money. And almost no one was doing it.
It's time.
Yup. If you stick to a build for a while, you will be surprised at how much value you just accumulate over time. You won't think about it. You'll think, oh, I haven't put that much into my build. And then you realize that you've actually put 10 to 20x into it. It's also why builds, when you reroll, so often feel bad right around level 87 to 90. When you push into the content that your old build could do without the investment that your old build had, because you didn't realize how much investment that you had into the build. I don't know if I wanted to pick that up, but it's a thing, so I clicked it. I did not. It's absolute garbage. I hate Harvest too, but for very different reasons. Let's see if I get a speed shrine here. I don't, but I got a defensive shrine, which is nice. And a regen shrine.
Excitement is immeasurable. Give yourself to the void.
Yeah, see, they don't hurt that much.
Grasp your mortality tightly.
Oh, I'm gonna... Yeah, I got hit by that. It didn't die this time. Pretty sure I blocked it. Which is kind of terrifying. Yeah, swapping special essences is one of those things. It's kind of like upgrading scarabs to winged. So like a gilded expedition scarab going to a winged, or a gilded divination scarab going to a winged, or a gilded parandis, or not parandis, why did I say parandis? Harbinger going to a winged often adds massive value, and that's a relatively common craft. Yeah, what's really tedious about Harvest is using all the rerolls, which early on, absolutely, you should do it. It's very good money. It will get you your seed money to do whatever else you want. But at this point, I can't be bothered. I honestly cannot be bothered to do a lot of things right now. By running maps. I know that might seem like just a non-helpful answer, but the main way to get Kirak missions is to run maps. And you can take some Atlas passives, which give you a higher chance to get a Kirak mission. But overall, it's just a function of map bosses killed. See, I'm not a fan of the Sea of Scarabs. I will be making a build showcase for this build with the explicit warning that you should not try to copy it. I will not be making a guide for this build. I've kind of finished making build guides because I find the very nature of most build guides in Path of Exile to be disingenuous. Because most build guides sell this idea that you as a random person can reproduce the character that is being seen on screen and being played. And in most cases, that's not true. So instead, I focused on build showcases where I'm going to talk about how the mechanics work. I'm going to talk about what I did, and I'm going to talk about my character. And if you want to make something that's inspired by it, then go for it. But I don't want you to have the idea that you can explicitly copy everything I did and have the same results. It is not normal to lose the scarab when upgrading.
Feel your life drain away.
Wait, where is it? Oh, it's over here.
Mortal flesh is so fallible.
Yeah. And personally, I feel a lot more fulfilled by making videos that teach people about the underlying mechanics, how I craft things and all that, rather than just saying, here's my build, here's how you copy it.
Shadow, rise and fight.
Yes, you go explode on my Herald. I approve. Phoenix is the only thing that's really dangerous in these. It's kind of like how with my Cast on Crit Forbidden Right build. It's very good, but it's not the sort of thing where everyone is going to be able to successfully build it, because it requires a lot of understanding of different moving parts in mechanics and gearing. And there's a lot of people who have played that build and have enjoyed it. I suspect that if I had sold it as a build guide, if I had sold it as anyone can do this and it's easy, a lot of people would have tried it and would have failed to account for various aspects and would have run into trouble and would have had a much worse experience as a result. So I'm very happy with making showcases rather than guides. I don't think I'll kill myself to Fizz Reflect. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. All right, that's fine, I think. You just have to not stand on old Sparky boy. Or not Sparky, Sparky is Ash. Old Explodey boy, Phoenix.
The long-awaited event is finally here. Mortal flesh is so fallible.
Right.
Another challenger.
One down.
This is my entropy.
Hydra should be dead now.
Another challenger. Twin terrors.
Oh. Oh, I just ate that to the face. 10 exalt to that. Sure.
Another round will commence as soon as I have more combatants.
I feel like the way to combine Dark Pact and Forbidden Right is if you did some sort of Dark Pact on Skellies and you're casting Forbidden Right on yourself. Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm glad you had a good time with it. Well, I guess they changed their mind. Okay. Let's see, what was that ding? That ding was... Oh, they did not change their mind. They disconnected. It's always so hard to tell because people don't communicate very well with trading often if someone changed their mind on an item or if they just disconnected. There have been so many times where someone has messaged me to buy an item and oh no, can they not teleport to my hideout? Oh no, this poor person. But yeah, someone's messaged me for an item, and they've clearly messaged a bunch of people, and I invite them, and they join, and then someone else messages back for a lower price, and they just leave. Which I am sometimes guilty of, but I always try my best to remember to be like, hey, sorry, I got another one. Because it does make a difference to just let someone know. I don't want them to DC again. I'm just going to teleport to them. Watch now, I'm going to DC. Oh. Okay, they went to their hideout. That's fine. I think. This is a very long loading screen. I can hear that I'm loaded into the hideout. Okay. Oh no. I didn't save their name. There is definitely an incompatible gateway between me and them. What was it? Was it... I think that? I have no idea if I am or not. I just know that generally I don't have disconnect issues. So it's certainly something weird. Generally speaking, though, I haven't had issue trading with anyone who has a Cyrillic name, which doesn't necessarily mean they're in Russia. Let's see, I just did that, so onto these. Yeah, I should probably... Okay, there's nothing of interest there right now.
One of my captors felt no emotion. He did not hesitate to inflict pain. Now, all he feels is intense, unstoppable agony.
Remnant of Corruption, I'll grab that. Let's just head over to the boss while I'm literally immortal. I don't think I even need to kill most of these enemies. I wouldn't drop 1% max res for 2 passives. I don't think that's worth it. Especially as you get to higher max res, it becomes extremely valuable.
Such a thing been hiding. I simply must see more.
Of the mind.
Good old immortality. I've gone up to 10 fragments of a phoenix. I guess I'll have to start making another stack over here.
One of my captors refused redemption. He did not see value in a new life. Now, new life starts.
Tinkerer's Table. So if you could get to 90% without the node, then it would be worth it. But going from 90% max res to 89% max res means you take 10% more elemental damage, which is a pretty significant amount.
Even better with a weapon.
Given the other defenses that the RF build has, it won't brick your build or anything, but I don't think it's worth it for 2 passive points. 2 passive points for 10% less. Well, actually, I guess it's more like 11% less elemental damage taken. Absolutely worth it. Yeah, the shrines are pretty convenient.
I want this ancient power as part of the guild and fight on. Life.
That's 1, that's 2. Might as well blow this up.
One of my captors wore many faces, yet kept her true face hidden. Now, she cannot escape her true face.
One slightly unfortunate thing about this setup is it doesn't have phasing, so I get stuck on enemies a little bit. But Withering Step gives me phasing and Flame Dash goes through them, so it's never really a problem. It's just a problem when I'm feeling lazy and not using those things. Which, if you haven't guessed from the recent Phoenix deaths, has largely been me being lazy the entire time and just standing next to an extremely dangerous thing. Because mostly my health doesn't move. And also I'm 98, so if I never level up again, it's kind of whatever.
Local, need your aid.
Oh no, it's not Rog. I did not select that correctly. There we go. Sometimes the hook points for these with terrain are very awkward. Well, I would redo it, but it's just 1 in maps, so eh. We'll do single logbook for most of it. You can do RF in solo southbound, so if we're just talking getting started, very little. If you have a mage blood, even less. Yes, I would drop Soul of Steel instead. That sounds like a better, more efficient plan. I don't think I ever actually used Soul of Steel, because it was too many points for too little value. RF would not be good with Blackflame. Because Blackflame specifies from your ignites, and RF is not an ignite. So, enemies ignited by you take chaos damage instead of fire damage from ignite. So I guess not even your ignites. Hall of the Grandmasters, tip. Have a really stupid overpowered build that deals damage over time. Hall of the Grandmasters is dumb. I don't even do it most leagues. If it's not on the Atlas, I just don't bother to do it because it's such a pain.
What a mysterious prison.
I guess my tip would be don't do it. Which may and may not be a helpful tip. But the whole concept of that map is people trying to grief you. I don't think that's going to kill me. It would have been well deserved if I had died there because I saw him doing the wind-up and I just stood in it going, I'm sure this is fine. Generally, though, Hall of a Grandmaster builds are weakest to damage over time. Hexblast Ignite was never alive. So, yes.
My captors hid a beast within his heart. Self can be seen by all.
Yeah, PvP scaling is weird, and it just randomly wrecks certain skills. So you'll have a skill that works fine for the rest of the game, and it just doesn't do damage. Chaos damage over time, I forget the exact reasoning behind it, but I do know chaos over time does work. I forget why. I think there's something about PvP scaling on CI specifically that instead of making you immune, it just gives you 160% chaos res or something, so you can actually res shred your way down to damage them. Or 100% max chaos res, I meant. I forget exactly the rule. I just know that it does actually work. Yeah, I don't think I've done Hall on this character, and I'm at 117 out of 117. You're welcome. That was a very fun build.
Contest for the ages. Feel your life drain away.
So I'm glad people are enjoying the video. Assuming that I finish up my editing properly tonight, I'll have a video on the mechanics of Blackflame that should be out Thursday, and a video on some thoughts of Gauntlet builds that should be out tomorrow. And then I'll showcase this build probably end of this week or early next week.
Twin terrors.
No, there's no boss there.
Feel your life drain.
I'm not going to stand in that. Phoenix should be dead to the dot. Knowing when something has accumulated enough damage to die is very important on a build like this. I don't think it's even worth doing Halls of the Grandmasters for that div card. The odds are too low, and there's too many other ways to make money.
Life is so brittle. This one is quite special and quite rarely seen.
How expensive is this build? Well, here's the problem. I started between 150 and 200 exalts when I was buying and crafting gear for this, and I ended around 250. So how expensive is it? Somewhere between spending a massive amount of money and you make a profit by playing it. And I have no idea where.
To up the stakes. so brittle?
Because I made most of the items that I'm wearing.
Shadow, rise and fight! How long will I be kept waiting?
Wait, Brother's stash is worth 20x? No way. There's no way people are overpaying by that much on Brother's stash. Or did you just mean that the mirror card is worth 20? Because I could see the mirror card being worth 20. I know people tend to overpay on div cards, but I couldn't really see Brother's stash being that high.
One of my captors
Ah, the mirror card. Okay, that makes more sense. I find it really funny when that mirror card gets inflated by all the gambling addicts and ends up being worth so much that it's completely impractical to actually gamble on it, but people just love deleting their currency, so they do it anyway. Thanks. My chess piece is very annoying to make. I'll just say that. I think that was the thing that I spent the most on. I feel like the base was around 15 exalts, and then I spent, I'd like to say 30 between rolling the suffixes and rolling the implicits. So 45x for the chess piece. Whereas my gloves, on the other hand, were incredibly cheap by comparison. They cost me about 8x. I think a little less, actually. I think it was 7, because I hit everything first try. Which just goes to show that if you're crafting a bunch of things for yourself, there is a lot of variance. Sometimes you will spend a lot of money to make something, and sometimes, depending on, of course, how greedy you are, you'll spend very little. For the gloves, I wasn't very greedy. I was just like, yeah, almost all of these are fine. For the chest, I was like, no, I want these exact things. It must have dexterity and plus cold res and all this other stuff. And it must be tier 6. Or tier 5, I think. I'm pretty sure it's tier 5, not 6. Using the tier 4 embers, though, and ichors, exorbitantly expensive. Most of the cost of a chest was just in those. Probably shouldn't have done that. You should not have been gambling. What are you doing? Never gamble on Gwenin.
What a mysterious shadow.
I'm glad you're liking it. I've also been liking it quite a lot, more than I expected. I expected this to be a meme build that felt like I was putting in too much effort for too little in terms of results. But no, actually, it feels like I'm getting exactly what I wanted out of it. No, probably should have used my flask there. That's a problem with auto flasking. You forget to use it if it's ever not automatically used for you. The thing about use when charges reach full, it does not actually use the flask when the charges reach full. It uses the flask when you would gain charges and the charges are full, which is an interesting difference that comes up, for example, on boss fights, but won't really come up when you're clearing maps.
Godslayer.
All right, I got some divine orbs. That almost has good damage ranges. Not quite, though. Plus, I doubt anyone's playing an Omniax build. As cool as Omniax does sound. Yeah, the problem with gambling on Gwenin
One of my captors
is if you have 400 or 500 exalts and you can lose any amount of money that you put in gambling, go for it. If losing all of the money you gamble on Gwenin impacts you in any way, do not do it. Sure, but remember the statistical odds there, Wonderful Jin. And remember the fact that Gwenin is all or nothing. That you won't make your money back if you use 30x in rerolls. You're likely to make back around 3 exalts or 300. You either get the Mage Blood, the Squire, the Headhunter, or you get basically nothing. And the average to get the Mage Blood, the Squire, or the Headhunter is thousands of rerolls. Literal thousands of them. I feel like you can do better than Oro. I feel like you could do... I don't think Void Forge is the answer. I don't think Void Forge gives quite enough damage. I don't know. It would be really hard for me to justify Omni Flicker when Howa Flicker exists. And I feel like Howa Flicker is still all the damage that you need, except it just never dies to anything. And Omni Flicker dies constantly. So I don't think I could actually justify Omni Flicker.
I want this ancient power as part of my be healed and fight on.
Ooh. I don't want to stand in that.
A veil of steel like this one.
Perfect.
that stretches the sanity of the mind.
Yep, that doesn't surprise me. And that's the thing about Gwenin. Sometimes you will use 2,000 rerolls and you will get a Headhunter and a Mage Blood. Other times you will use 20,000 and get none of them. It is incredibly high variance. Now, I'm sure someday someone's going to have a really good data set. Someone like MBX or Zai is going to be bored and go, what happens if I use 200,000 Gwenin rerolls? And then we'll actually know how many you should expect to use. Until we do, I would always assume that any money you put into Gwenin is just deleted. If you can afford to delete all the currency you gamble, go for it if you find it fun. If that currency matters to you or matters to your build, do not ever gamble on Gwenin, because it is a terrible consistent return. Even Watcher's Eyes are better. Yeah, see, Tujin, he gives you good money.
One of my captives wore many faces, yet kept her true face hidden. Now she cannot escape her true face.
No, I'm just not going to stand in that for a second. Oh, sunk cost fallacy absolutely exists in PoE. Most people just actually kind of fall for it really badly in the worst ways. Because sunk cost fallacy in PoE applies to your builds, where you're doing something that isn't conducive to a strong build, but then you get invested in making it work, and you keep putting more and more currency in,
more deals.
when you could change one little thing
Violence.
and make the build perfect. Or if not perfect, extremely good. And people fall into that trap so easily. Because they're like, well, I really want this to work. I've already put 100x into this build, it has to be good. I don't have an opinion on a Lightning Bolt build. I would guess that it's just a terrible meme. The only lightning warp build that I know of was a heist build that was designed explicitly to just go fast. And it was very good at that. No, I probably shouldn't base tank those right now.
Twin terrors.
Mostly because I'm pretty sure I'm reduced block chanced here, which is a little bit problematic. Yeah, that's another thing that hurts a lot of people. Especially at this late in the league, I can totally understand why you're selling an 80x investment build for 60. In general, you really shouldn't be selling builds for less than what you paid for the gear. You should get into the habit of, I'm not going to play this thing unless I'm comfortable with reselling the gear for more than I paid. So you just lightning warp to the boss and kill it? I guess? I don't see much the point of that. That feels like a worse way to heist or a worse way to lab run. There's money in bossing, but it's not honestly that efficient compared to a lot of other stuff right now. Well, in that case, you're not doing too badly. At least you should sell things for a decent return.
Such a dark glow. Take this vitality boon.
So I've been streaming for roughly how long? I've been streaming for an hour and 40 minutes. So let's just say an hour and a half of doing this. And with not going particularly fast, I've done 6 sets now. I'm sure that's really bad in terms of profit per hour, but I'm also not going that fast. I would guess you can go significantly faster if you're actually trying to just rush to the boss.
Take this vitality boon.
But I still can't imagine it coming close to most other forms of money making right now.
Take this vitality boon.
Yeah. And that's why re-rolling, and re-rolling a lot,
Train away.
is so detrimental to people. That even though you're making 10 exalts, you spent a day. And I think 10 exalts for a day, for some people, is fine. But when you also factor in potentially selling it for less money, that's where things get really, really bad. Yeah, re-rolling costs you more money than you would think.
Now resist my entropy. Take this boon like this one.
To a crucible that stretches the sanity of the mind.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Most meme builds like that feel really bad even with decent investment. Okay, and I know I had more of these. Right, that one's corrupted and mediocre. I'll stick it here just in case I don't get another one as a drop. 71, that's decent. Sure.
At least die with some flair.
Because it doesn't matter.
Take this
Why would
vitality
having percent of life as extra maximum energy shield matter for me.
Time to twin
And if I used Glorious Vanity Doriani for Corrupted Soul, that would just be outright detrimental.
Life is so brittle. The most of my lives are glorious.
We...
Another round will commence as soon as I have more combatants.
Well, that's a secret. Almost every build really takes advantage of Mage Blood. So, rerolling costs money but is fun is often the argument I hear. And here's my counterpoint. Most players who reroll a lot are always miserable. Whenever I talk to someone who rerolls constantly, they're always miserable. They're always complaining how bad their build is, how much their build sucks, how they can't farm anything, how bosses are too hard, how the game's too hard, how they die to everything. And they're clearly just absolutely miserable. It's because they're rerolling before the point where the game gets fun. And so, in most cases, I would advocate against rerolling for that reason. Because you'll be trapped forever in that loop of your build is not yet fun. Now, if you're rerolling constantly and you're like, I'm super happy, that's different. But most people who talk to me who reroll constantly are constantly miserable at the fact that they can't do things like kill Cirrus. Yeah, and that's a little different. And also planned rerolls are a different thing again. If you've accomplished all of your goals, that's very different from rerolling to try to fix problems.
A contest for the ages.
I guess at this point it would be Maven. I don't know. What's the boss that people consider the end game experience now?
A veil of safety and security.
This is a lot of AoE. Yeah, I was gonna say that's gonna hit me.
Yes, it's mine.
There we go.
That stretches the sanity of the mind.
Come here. Stop hiding. I think it's a bit of an exaggeration to say that you can kill Cirrus on a level 80 character. Yeah, I hit level 98, and I've been doing all my fragments.
One of my captors refused redemption. He did not see value in a new
If you have enough DPS on your build, the easiest way to do Maven is, in the last phase, just intentionally die to the memory game and wait for her to stop doing it and then go back in. It's a cop-out, but it makes the fight very easy and you don't have to remember anything or deal with coil beams, which makes it very nice. You do need a fair bit of damage to do that, though. It wouldn't surprise me if someone did the fight at level 1, but that's a testament to their own personal skill and mechanics and not anything to do with the ease of difficulty. All it means is a fight doesn't have hard DPS checks and doesn't have hard health pool checks. Which means, yes, you can play well enough to do that kind of thing. But most people won't. And most people shouldn't be expected to. Especially when you're learning the fight, nobody's going to play that well where they dodge everything.
And shadow
That's something you do
rise
because you've learned the fight.
tight tethers. Quite special and quite rarely seen.
That's almost good. I believe someone did do Shaper as CIEB, but again, Shaper is the sort of fight where there's no guaranteed damage check.
She cannot escape.
And so you can do that. But that doesn't mean you should tell someone to do that the first time they do the fight. You probably shouldn't tell most people that's how they should be doing it at all, actually. Even if it's the 50th time they're doing the fight. So an example of a situation where it's very hard to completely impossible to do CIEB things, i.e. do a fight without taking any damage at all, would be Katarina. Because I believe the degen that starts as soon as you break her thingy is not percentile health. So it's almost impossible to do a Katarina without taking any damage. How's it going, Snow? That's an example of a fight with guaranteed damage as opposed to a fight where everything can be dodged. Crystal King, on the other hand, fight where everything can be dodged. Yeah, the thing is, Derek, you're acting like that number means anything. The amount of ES that I have means absolutely nothing to my build. Maybe you could do it with the Trickster Ascendancy, but I don't actually know the timing, and I don't know if you could rotate that and keep it up for enough time.
Less real and more time bends to my will. Tight tethers. Twin terrors. More like this one.
Goodbye.
Sanity of the mind.
So right now I have about 56,000 armor. Which means as long as I have over 1100 ES, my ES number doesn't actually matter. Nope. Biggest pro to doing Blackflame versus regular Ignite. More damage scaling when played on an Occultist-Elementalist. This does more damage than the Elementalist version would.
One of my
How much DPS?
hit a beast
Somewhere between 7 and 12 million, depending on what's up and what isn't. Because it's not less effective HP, it's more effective HP. because Twitch doesn't give quality options. Good old King Harbingers. Should probably stop picking up all the essences. I don't think I'm going to use them at this point. Yeah, unfortunately, that isn't how that works. You can't just email Twitch and be like, hey, you should verify me.
Glow. Life is so brittle.
So do you have a grasping mail at all? Because I would value having a grasping mail at all over a mage blood, but I would value a mage blood over a near perfect grasping mail. Something that's, say, fractured.
Give yourself to the void.
Yeah, last time I emailed Twitch about something, they didn't even get back to me.
Mortal flesh is so fallible. No resist my
So
entry.
I would go for a grasping mail to start with, but I wouldn't blow my entire budget on that. Instead, what I would do is buy a decent grasping mail, and then from there, I would start saving for a mage blood. The best high investment build would be Cast on Crit Forbidden Rite, and it is way better than Omni Tornado Shot. Omni Tornado Shot is honestly a trash build at high investment.
Riveting
To
battle.
a crucible that stretches the sanity of the mind.
It's only good at moderate investment. I guess now it's overpriced, so it has to be high investment. That's really unfortunate. Yep. Basically, I am too small for Twitch to care about me, so even
Awaited
if I
Avengers
tried
finally
emailing
here.
them, they wouldn't bother. And if that's the case, I will just go with a platform where I can actually get things done. I've contacted YouTube support, and despite the meme being that YouTube support never answers, they definitely answered me.
Another challenger. Twin terrors.
Yeah, Twitch definitely didn't respond to me within 4 to 6 business weeks. It's been over a year and they have not responded yet.
Safety and security.
Maybe it means 4 to 6 years.
Until next time.
It'll be 2030 and Twitch will be like, hey, we got your email from 20... Oh god, it was from 2020. Never mind. Doing well on a 3-mirror build means nothing. Of course, anyone is going to do well on a 3-mirror build. That doesn't mean the build is good. That doesn't mean you couldn't do much better on a 2-mirror build or even a 1-mirror build that's something different. Well, I am glad that my rant about Twitch not getting back to me has reminded Snow to send an important email. See, there is some good that comes of it. Oh, look, I have another set that I can run now. Are all of these unID'd? Yes, they're all unID'd. Okay. Wait, there was one that wasn't. Let's find you and you. I can do no regen, but I don't feel like switching to a mana flask, so I'm just not going to. Yes.
One of my captors
Fractured, uninfluenced rings drop from Delve
hesitate to inflict pain.
with Curse on hit.
All he feels is intense, unstable agony.
Actually, I have a better one. I just never bothered to fix my boots to use it, which I probably should. But it's one of those things where all it does is give me more damage, and I don't really care about doing more damage at this point. My damage is fine. Well, hopefully I never get any emails from you then. Because I really prefer it when things haven't gone wrong. Ooh, a harvest. Time to do it in the most lazy way possible.
We need not the fruit, just the juice.
Timeless splinters into a timeless emblem. Yes. I think I have those. I do have those. Breach splinters into a... I don't have any. I did it too many times. I don't know that you can actually hit global defenses off of vendor grasping mails. But also your mistake was trying to make the grasping mail yourself from the breach rings rather than selling all the breach rings and buying a grasping mail. Because if you've made 10 of them, that's 600, which last I checked, assuming they're like item level 83, was at least 3 chaos each, which is 1,800 chaos or around 10.5 exalts, which means you could have easily bought a good grasping mail for the amount you have now wasted by gambling. Don't gamble on stuff. Save up and buy the thing. Area of effect per quality. All right, I forgot to enchant this weapon. Oh god, I've been using this weapon without an enchant for way too long. Oh, now it has an enchant. Okay, you can, but still, it's a very big gamble, and you should not be doing it. I wasn't sure if Chiula's modifiers could show up on vendor grasping mails, or if they were drop only. Because I know there are certain mods that are drop restricted, or item level restricted, I should say. All right, catalyst, that's what I was gonna look at. I have so many noxious catalysts. These can't be worth anything. Watch, it's a 10 exalt catalyst and I just wasted it. But, huh. If you have enough money that all the money you gamble going away doesn't affect you, by all means gamble. But if you are poor, you should never gamble. Because gambling keeps you poor if you are poor. It might be that it's item level restricted rather than completely impossible. So if you're using breach rings below a certain item level, it may never spawn a Chiula's mod. Yeah, just be unproductive and play video games and then stream it so that you can feel productive when you're really just playing video games. I kid, streaming is a lot more than just playing video games. I guess if I were to just turn chat off and not read chat, then I'd be just playing video games. But streaming is much more about chat than it is about the game. No, I don't use any add-ons because all of the trade add-ons do annoying things that I don't want them to. And I can't be bothered to learn scripting enough to turn the features that I don't want off. So I just don't use them.
Stretches the sanity of the mind. One of my captors refused redemption. He did not see value in a new life. Now, new life surrounds him.
Yep. If you can't afford to lose it, don't gamble it. And I feel like it's not said enough that if you are poor, it is always going to be a faster path to incrementally upgrade things than it is to try to take shortcuts. Sometimes you will get lucky and the game will hand you a shortcut. Sometimes you're just going to kill a random enemy like I am right now, and a mage blood will just fall on the floor. That's a huge shortcut. But you shouldn't try to force those shortcuts. Just enjoy them when they happen.
There will be death. Twin terrors.
So when you use fossils, they re-roll items. Also, a fractured fossil doesn't fracture the item. Fracture is a harvest craft.
That stretches the sanity of the mind.
And harvest craft requires multiple mods on the item. Because otherwise, everyone would always just fracture one mod items and always fracture what they wanted. Hey, it's been a while. There was a bit where I wasn't streaming because it was honestly miserable on my old computer. And I was just sick of PoE being sub 20 frames per second all the time. It's no longer sub 20 frames per second. Now everything works fine because I got a new computer. And so I have been streaming more, and I might be streaming again later this week. We'll see. Depends on what I'm doing on the weekend. Counterpoint, gambling and getting something good while poor might feel good, but how bad does it feel to lose all of your money while poor and get nothing? Yes. I'm not sure about already because I was trying to upgrade my PC since 2020, but it was very, very hard to get a hold of graphics cards at anywhere near MSRP. And so I have finally pay to win my way into more frames in Path of Exile. And now I have actual frames. Yeah, I don't think you can use it to copy helmet enchants anymore, even. I think they changed it so you can't use it on enchanted items, and it just works like a more limited split beast now. Not big weekend plans, but I may be playing Pathfinder with a group of friends. Pathfinder being the tabletop game, not the class in Path of Exile. But there was a change. The entire time I was making money off of YouTube and saving money. And so that is, I literally did the thing that I say to do in Path of Exile in real life, where I saved up and bought something rather than, I guess there isn't really gambling on graphics cards. The only gamble is signing up for things like Newegg Shuffle, which I just never got picked for. And I was fine with not getting picked for because Newegg is a shitty company that treats its customers terribly. And so I'm glad I didn't end up giving them any money.
That stretches the sanity.
Or didn't end up giving them a lot of money for a graphics card, I should say. Yeah, the new Steam Deck is very spicy. If I was just playing things and just gaming, I'd absolutely be into getting a Steam Deck. But unfortunately, I don't think the Steam Deck's very good at video editing.
In his heart. Now his true self.
Thank you. I am not trained. I've just been doing this for a while now. Oh god, you're right. Yeah, I was not going to be gambling on used crypto cards on eBay. That just sounds like a bad time. Now that I'm no longer saving for a computer, investing is exactly what I'm doing. So, in some ways, you're right. But when I had a specific thing with a specific price point that, well, was very inflated and I knew was at some point going to come down, the goal was to save so that I had the money for when the price point did come down. And that's exactly what happened, and that's how I got my computer. And so I am very happy with it. And again, that does kind of mirror the PoE economy. If you're just sitting on raw exalts, you usually are losing money. Favorite Pathfinder class? Ooh, that's a tough one. I've played a lot of things, including some really spicy stuff. But I'd have to, if I had to pick one, Gunslinger.
My excitement is immeasurable. Mortal flesh is so fallible.
I would have to say that Gunslinger is my favorite class. Yeah, and that's the other thing I really didn't like about the Newegg Shuffle.
Give yourself to the
They often made you buy fairly expensive things that you didn't want because they knew they were junk products that would never sell.
Flesh is so fallible.
Like exploding gigabyte power supplies, which I don't think I have to say allegedly exploding since Gamers Nexus has a video showing the power supply exploding. And I remember, because I'd been looking for a card at the time, I was just like, oh, thank God I didn't get that.
Is so brittle. Resist the assault.
For me, it would depend on the rule set and how it's done. If it manages to capture the jank that is making builds in Path of Exile, I'd absolutely do it.
Grasp your mortality tightly.
But if they didn't manage to capture that, if it was just like PoE skinned D&D 5th edition, no thank you.
Mortal flesh is so fallible.
There's not enough jank. This is Path of Exile.
Crucible that stretches the
I think I'll actually do the ritual. Mostly just because I want to spawn the boss and get extra fragments. And there's another one around here that I'm going to go dash to. Or maybe it wasn't around here. See if they answer. I put a portal up just in case they do. But they might be getting spammed. I think a while ago, there was someone who was working on a PoE-themed setting, but I think it was just a setting for standard D&D or Pathfinder. It wasn't a fully custom system. Yeah, Pathfinder First Edition, which is what I play, would do a really good job of mirroring the jank. Like a really, really good job. So I got from that a bunch of fragments. I was curious how many I would get from 8. Well, it was 7 shaper sets originally, and it turned into 8. Because I got some drops. And so now I'm, of course, out of chimeras. Wait, you can Horizon Orb these, can't you? I think you can Horizon Orb these. If so, I'm going to keep running these because I'm curious what I'll end up with. So far, I've gotten a scary amount of Phoenix fragments. So 3 Minotaurs, 3 Phoenixes, 3 Hydras. You put those 2 away, and then I roll these. There we go. Roll over that, roll over that. That's fine. I think in terms of player power scaling, the thing that captures it best is Path of War, where you start out really weak and then you just get absolutely ridiculous and do 500 plus damage around. Because you're like, oh, I have this ability, and I have that ability, and I have this buff, and I have that buff. Oh no, I don't have enough actions to use all of my buffs. But also Path of War is kind of cheesy. What's... Good luck with Cirrus. I don't know if I've tried Exalted or not. I've heard of it, but I don't remember if I've actually tried it or if I just heard of it. And I think I need to buy a Formed because I haven't been dropping them. Right? Yeah, I haven't been dropping them. Interestingly enough, the Pathfinder campaign that I'm playing in has kind of taken certain elements, I think unintentionally, from PoE's storyline. Where, more or less, all the player characters have become gods and are now trying to get more power to fight against other gods, using the power of various, sometimes dead and sometimes undying gods. It's all very PoE. Let's see. Good enough. Minus max. All right, so Phoenix is just going to insta-kill me if I'm not careful. Time to not be careful around Phoenix. So if I did my Elemental Hit Slayer as a higher budget, I think I would honestly play it as Explosive Arrow rather than Elemental Hit. But I don't know. I don't really see any point in playing a high budget bow build because I don't see enough budget solving bow build's problems. So I can't really imagine myself playing a high budget version of any bow build. Wait, where's Phoenix? There's Phoenix. Yes, yes. Attack the things that are not me. I like this. Alright, you should be burning to death now. Right? Oh no, Maven healed you? Okay, there we go. I am not the game master, no. Okay, I'm going to go put that over here, and Time to run more of these.
One of my captors felt no emotion. He did not hesitate to inflict pain.
Yeah, my problem with Elemental Hit
All he feels is intense, unstoppable agony.
was exactly the same problem I have with almost all bow builds, which is I have to pay attention while playing it. The damage on Elemental Hit was totally fine. In fact, I think the damage on Elemental Hit is overall better than the damage I would get from Explosive Arrow. But the advantage of Explosive Arrow is on less damage scaling gear, it can do okay DPS. And so I would always want to scale my defenses as much as possible on a high budget build. And so I think Explosive Arrow would do a better job of letting me drop damage from my gear and focus in on more defensive stuff. Because what I always value in high budget builds is quality of life and defenses. And those are the two areas where bows really, really struggle. Which is why I can't really see myself playing a high budget bow build.
Less real. Grip of the infinite. Temporal tears.
Goodbye, Hydra. You'll be back in a second, though, I bet.
Be healed and fearless. It's mine.
That stretches the sanity of the mind.
I think if I was to play a high budget Slayer build, what would I play on a high budget Slayer? The problem is I keep thinking, but I could be a Juggernaut with Berserker nodes or a Berserker with Juggernaut nodes. Is there anything I'd specifically want to be a Slayer for? Endurance and Frenzy Charge scaling is honestly the only thing I can think of. But defenses seem like they're in such a good spot that I'm no longer desperate to have endurance charges in every build. Yeah, exactly. Like 300x? See, if I went Flicker Strike, I'd be a Raider, though. I'd be a Howa Flicker Raider. And I'd just laugh at damage.
Refused redemption. He did not see
No,
value
Lightning
in
Flicker.
new life. Now, new life.
Lightning Flicker. Int stacking. It's okay, Snow. Howa plus Aegis Aurora makes everything good. You don't need a good build if you have Aegis Aurora on. Yeah, people always suggest Slayer Cyclone. They're wrong. The answer was never to be a Slayer Cyclone build. Oh, okay, I thought of something. That reminds me. If I was going to play a Slayer build, I would be a Shield Crush build. I would be a Shield Crush build because then I'm holding a shield and I can get all the defensive quality of life I want because I'm holding a shield. Congratulations on killing Cirrus. Yeah, if I was going to do a high-end Slayer build, 100% Shield Crush. Sign me up. I'm pathing this wrong, but I don't really care anymore. So Howa is expensive because the gear overlaps a lot with Omni, but if you're willing to use an Aegis Aurora, it's insanely powerful. So if we're talking low investment, I wouldn't say Howa is viable this league. If we're talking high investment, top tier build. I think it loses to something like Cast on Crit Forbidden Right, because it's a little bit harder to scale some of your auxiliary effects, but it's still definitely S tier. See, that's the advantage, Snow, of playing an Aegis Flicker. You don't need to know where your character is, because your character won't die no matter what you stand in. You're basically immortal on that build, especially now that you have 90% res. People say everything's slow. I think people just have an incredibly warped sense of what's slow or fast in PoE.
There will be days.
You can scale explodey effects to make anything reasonably fast, but people will say your build is slow no matter what it is. So unfortunately, I can't recommend a guide. I would say just search Melding of the Flesh, Hand of Wisdom in Action, Aegis Aurora on PoE Ninja. And at that point, you'd probably be able to find what you're looking for. I don't know if there are even any guides on it.
Slayer.
I don't know if there are guides in English, because I've seen a good number of Korean players playing it, which makes me think there's probably a guide in Korean, unless they're all just grabbing from PoE Ninja pages, which could be. I haven't seen any English guides, but as I only speak English, I only know about English guides. Kind of lightning warped. Maybe a little bit better than lightning warped, though, because this does actual damage, like a lot of damage.
One of my captives wore many faces, yet kept her true
Yeah, I
face.
played Shield Crush Gladiator in Expedition because I didn't care. Wait, why do I even have an Awakened Hex Touch? Well, my Awakened Hex Touch that I didn't know I had just leveled up. That's cool. Don't know why I have it. I think I must have considered some sort of curse abuse thing. You know, it looks like it is time to ban a bot in just a second here. Unless Snow's still around to grab it. There we go. One thing I don't like about the OBS overlay. The OBS overlay is great, but the OBS overlay doesn't let me click through and ban things from OBS. Yeah, if you have a POV, that would be very helpful. Although, as a note, YouTube likes to eat pastebin links. So I think you'll have to use the pob.in. Yeah, no worries, Snow. I think prototype Doriani's prototype is exactly how people played it in 3.16. I think at this point it might be a little bit hard to scale the res. I'm glad. And also, my condolences for having to do that much Tujin. Yeah, without Scourge to be able to Krangle to scale your lightning res down, I'm not sure it's worth it. Well, thanks for stopping by, and I'm glad you enjoyed. That is exactly why I stream. And also because I'm doing something really boring, but I'm curious as the science. And by science, I mean results of drops. And so stream helps me be less bored as well.
I want this ancient power's stalk and hunt.
Yeah, one thing to note is I wouldn't look at builds. I would look at daily for PoE Ninja, because at this point, builds is very, very badly skewed, because it's only level 99 plus. And so, like, all of my builds don't show up on PoE Ninja anymore. That sounds like it could be either perfect or very inconvenient, depending on the chair height, the desk height, and your height. If you just realized this, I'm guessing it was set at an inconvenient height and you hadn't noticed. Yeah, melding does help with Doryani. I just don't know if it helps enough to make up for the fact that you could get -20 to -30 lightning res on most of your gear. I guess it is -80, which is pretty nice. And because you're using Aegis, it means you'd have 90% fire res, 90% cold res, and -200 lightning, which is kind of the perfect... I mean, lightning dots will wreck you. Lightning dots will absolutely destroy you. You will have to be very careful of Baron maps. Life gain on hit might be enough to save you. It might not. And you'll have to be careful of the Little Eater of Worlds squids that do a lightning dot. Aside of those, you should be good. That said, I don't know that it's worth Doryani's. It might be better to just do normal pen things. And use like a Skin of a Lords or a Grasping Mail. Yeah, I know it's a popular archetype in 3.16, so worst case, looking at 3.16 stuff would help. And it's one of those things where it's not a meta build. It's easily strong enough to be a meta build. I think the reason it isn't is due to the innate cost and difficulty to assemble something like that. Oh no. I'm sorry to hear that, Gutka. Have you considered raising some friends from the dead to cry to? Because I'm sure that minions make for very sympathetic listeners. All jokes aside, what are you running into that's problematic in tier 16s? Because that sounds like a very fixable problem. It sounds like you've just missed one piece, and you should be able to fix it. That's true. Shaper Beam is a Scorching Ray, although I don't know if Flicker Strike negates that. Does Flicker Strike automatically teleport you behind enemies? Because if it does, Shaper should never hit you with the beam. But yes, Shaper's Scorching Ray is prismatic damage, meaning fire, cold, and lightning all at once. Which I guess I shouldn't call it prismatic damage anymore, because prismatic damage doesn't mean fire, cold, and lightning at once. It means rotating now because they made prismatic skills into a thing. Maybe I should call it Trinity damage. So there's an association with Trinity support, even though typically you only use 2 elements with Trinity. I shouldn't have stood in that. Didn't kill me though. But the damage over time from Maven is kind of wrecking me right now. So if I remember, that build uses Flesh Crafter. Is it possible that your minion's energy shield is getting knocked off and they're losing all of their damage? I don't know if that is actually the problem because I haven't played the build. I'm not super familiar with Scaly Mages, but just as a guess, I could see that being the problem. Yeah, nothing personal. And you just teleport behind them. That is another thing that's not what I want. So 58% and 67. I'll corrupt the 67. Yes. No, 60%. Oh, it's going to be so miserable. I might actually brick that one if I do it. God, that's miserable. See if this becomes anything better. Oh, I shouldn't have corrupted that with reduced non-curse. Oh well. I'm just going to run the reduced non-curse one and not the absolutely miserable one. I don't think I'm going to brick this.
At least die with some flair.
Huh. I wonder if, because Omni wants multiple attributes, it's caused people to try to craft a bunch of attribute gear, but then sell all of the single attribute rolls. So it's actually made gear cheaper rather than more expensive. Hey, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy them. I could actually see that being a possibility. Because if you're playing a build that uses the exact same gear as meta builds, it's usually expensive. If you're playing something that is using similar but slightly different gear, it's usually very, very cheap. And so it could be that Int Stacker is just all of the quote-unquote failed gear that people don't want to use for their Omni builds. Therefore, it's super, super affordable. When I was playing Shield Crush in Expedition, I ran into that. Because a bunch of people were playing Biz Impale Cyclone and stuff. And I was just buying all of their failed gear that didn't work very well for Cyclone and worked perfectly for Shield Crush. And also a bunch of people were playing Bleed Spectral Shield Throw. And I was buying all their failed gear that didn't work for Bleed because it rolled crit and stuff. And was absolutely perfect for me. Well, what that sounds like is you can take that build from what it is all the way up to 11. There's always room to min-max stuff. Which is kind of what I did with this, because I saw some ideas that weren't very fleshed out, that people had made in mostly inexpensive gear as well, and I just min-maxed it. My gear is probably much more expensive than the builds I was basing it off of. It also does double the DPS of the builds I was basing it off of. And is way more defensive because they weren't using Aegis. So apparently I've been leveling a bunch of gems in my offhand that I forgot that I had. So that's cool. I just found a whole bunch of awakened gems. I don't even remember why I have these. Now we're getting more expensive. I don't think Ulnatol's Vow is necessarily the answer, though. I don't know. I just kind of suspect that a proper attribute stacking amulet or an Eyes of a Great Wolf is the best option if budget is not an issue. Mostly because the advantage of Ulnatol's Vow was that you could easily Krangle it. Although I guess it does it give negative lightning res potentially? So what sort of trouble did you run into with the chess piece? All right, I will sell that ring. I think that was from when I redid my RF character. I don't even know why I have this. Never mind. That was definitely not from when I redid my RF character.
My excitement is temporal tears.
Oop.
Grasp your
Eee.
and battle for the ages with exotic rewards to match.
Wait, that's not my stash. So did you get the plus 1% and then have a lot of bad luck trying to get it to plus 2? As a note, the plus 2 all was definitely me being greedy. Plus 2 cold would be a lot easier and a lot cheaper to roll. Most embarrassing trade mistake. I don't know. I can't really think of the last time that I made a trade mistake where it bothered me. Usually it's things like I'm buying a bunch of items for 20 to 30 C and I message someone whose item was 20 and I just pay them 30. And I don't care at all. Because it was only 10 chaos either way. Trying to think if there's ever a time I remember making a big trade mistake. I can't really think of one. I'm sure there are items that I sold for way less than they were worth when I was newer at the game. But I also did that in blissful ignorance. So I can't really count that as an embarrassing mistake.
There will be death.
Oh.
Shadow, rise and fight.
Oh.
What a delightfully unusual struggle.
That stretches the sanity of the mind.
Getting scammed for things sucks, which is why whenever I'm buying something like 6-link shavs, I always make sure to slow myself down a little bit and pay extra attention. Because I know that that's a very common thing. Oof. Yeah, game crashes are never fun. It's why I say PoE is not a hardcore viable game. Because it shouldn't be crashing as much as it does. I don't have a calculator sitting next to me. I have a calculator app on my computer.
One of my captives
Yes,
wore many faces.
that calculator app is named Path of Building.
Now she cannot escape
Oh,
her true fate.
I'm sorry, somehow my chat was lagging and the bot spammed. You should be unbanned now. I'm very sorry about that. Yes, I did. YouTube's chat for moderation is very, very, very annoying to deal with. Yes, it should be good now. I apologize. You should be unbanned. It was not intentional. YouTube needs a much better moderation interface. Or maybe they could just, you know, let you ban based on names so that the bots just can't. Because I would love to be able to ban the bots based on their names. If I could do that, I would just ban every single bot before it ever posted. But unfortunately, you have to go through the chat interface, and it's not very good at showing you who you are selecting. And so if the chat moves, it changes who you have selected, which is really annoying. The flicker is CI, right? If so, the reason to use damage on full life is because as a CI build, you are always on full life. You have 1 life, you are either on full or dead. Now, it could be that there's a different gem that's a better multiplier, but as I remember, it has a pretty generous multiplier on it. That's Breachstone. I still haven't bought breach stones to roll with that because it's too late in the league and I don't care. Somewhere I have the old TI-86 from my college days, but I don't use it because it requires batteries. And batteries run out. I shouldn't throw random things at this, but I'm going to. Ooh, I got Rage and Doubt. Never mind. Calculated. No, it's when you are on full life. Yes. That one's a little bit more debatable. Back in the days of old Volpact, that was very much the case. You could probably get away with it these days again, with enough life gain on hit. I don't know that it's worth it for most builds, though. Because especially Fizz builds have so many good support gems that aren't damage on full life. And so even if most of the time it will be up, you don't want most of the time, you want all of the time. Oh.
Must have one of the special combatants.
That stretches the sanity of the mind.
Yeah, as long as you're gaining more life than you're losing. I believe it's as long as you're gaining more than you're losing within a given server tip. Which is, I think, a 30th of a second. So if you have Blood Rage going, it's fine. But if you start bleeding, start losing life, and you end the server tip without being full life, then you lose the bonus until, let's just say, your Staunching Flask kicks in, and you heal back up. I guess these days your Staunching Flask would... You know, I don't actually know if Flask triggers for use when bleeding activate within the same server tick as the effect that triggers it. I don't know if it waits one server tick or not. Oh, I see. This is how we're going to... This is how we're going to play it today.
It's my lucky day.
Yeah, but is it my lucky day or not, Gwennon? Are you going to give me a logbook? Because if you're not giving me a logbook, you're hoarding that luck.
I always love a good risk.
Oh, there we go. We got a logbook. We did it. Welcome back. I was just asking Gwennon for a logbook very nicely, and she gave me one. So that's pretty cool. And I'm almost done with all my Shaper maps now. At least until I get more as drops. If you're looking for content to run that you can just do, this is certainly pretty easy. Well, if it makes you feel better, she's never given me a Mage Blood either. I have gotten both of my Mage Bloods by buying them. Although, funny story. In 3.16, I did a lot of logbooks. No, never mind. I didn't do a lot of logbooks. 3.15 was when I did logbooks. 3.16, I did Scourged maps. They got me a bunch of logbook rerolls, or expedition rerolls. And at one point, a Berserker bought 60 Exalts worth. And I asked him, hey, did you get anything good? He's like, nope, but it's okay. I'll buy more later. A couple days later, I noticed that this was when I was buying my Mage Blood. I noticed that he had a Mage Blood for sale. And so I bought it from him. And I was just like, I guess it paid off. He's like, yeah, I got 2. I asked how much he spent. He spent 400 Exalts in Astragalis to get 2 Mage Bloods. Which, for reference, at the time Mage Bloods were around 1.5 mirrors, or I think it was 390 Astragalis, or 390 Exalted Orbs. So he roughly doubled his money. But he still spent 400 Exalts, which really goes to show you how random it is. I wouldn't be surprised if he spent another 400 and got nothing. Like, literally 0. I bet if you made it your goal from day one, Wonderful Jin, given what you've told me about your builds and the amount of money that you have, I think that you would stand a decent chance of saving up for a Mage Blood. But you would have to make it a goal, and you'd have to plan on, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and this is how I'm going to make my money. Yeah, exactly. Like, even if he had gotten from the Astragalis I sold him for 60x, even if he had gotten 2 Mage Bloods from that, I value my sanity more than I value 2 Mage Bloods. Am I going to do the one that's probably going to brick? Yeah. Let's try it. This is going to be really bad because it's reduced aura effect, and what else was it? Avoid ailments. That's really bad. Because this means I won't do damage.
Take this vitality boon.
The limitation is decision-making and playtime. So if you don't play enough, you won't really get a Mage Blood. It does require that you play a certain amount of time. I don't know exactly how much that time is, though. I don't think it's as high as most people expect. And then it does require decision-making. Like, I'm going to pick a build that I know from the start is good at farming this content, and I'm going to farm this content. Ooh.
Give yourself to the void.
Oh no, treating PoE like a casino. The scary thing is, I'm sure people do that. Surprisingly, I didn't brick that. I was expecting to, because that was a really nasty mod set for my build. I guess that's more credit to my build, or more credit to me not standing directly in the Phoenix explosion. One of those two.
One of my captors felt no emotion. He did not hesitate to inflict pain.
Well, enjoy your bacon, Snow. And yeah, making a lot of money is basically coming up with a farming strategy and then not wasting the money that you make. So I have a video that talks about an example of how to invest in upgrades. It really does depend a little bit on your build. In general, the idea though is look at what your problem is. So if your problem is, I like my build's defenses, but my damage feels low, then you want to upgrade a weapon or jewels or some other thing that affects your build's damage output. Maybe Awakened Gems or 2120 Gems. Whereas if it's, well, I'm dying, what are you dying to? Are you dying to standing next to Phoenix? If so, you should invest in not standing next to Phoenix. Are you maybe dying to just randomly while mapping you fall over? Well, what's for map mods? If a map mod happens to be reduced aura effect, maybe just don't run reduced aura effect maps. If a map mod happens to be Fizz's extra, invest in max res. Invest in something that counters elemental damage. Invest in life gain on block or ES on block. Look at the problem you're currently having and look for solutions to that problem.
Hail!
And if you're not having any problems, then upgrades are basically just vanity at that point. At that point, your upgrades don't matter so much because you're already able to comfortably do everything that you want to. Oh, this placement is awful. Whatever. But having enough experience in a build to know what to upgrade is fairly difficult for most players, as most players will play different things, and you very often build that level of knowledge on a given build by playing it over and over and over again. Like, I don't know if he's still lurking in chat, but Shaq Central, he can play Cold Dot in any situation and always immediately know what upgrade he needs next, because he has played Cold Dot so many times.
A contest for the ages. None resist my entropy.
Some people certainly play miners as if the solution to all problems is just damage, but you can also very easily play as the solution is you don't want to die, so you get additional defenses, which is how I always played miners, because I think that just damage is a bad solution that is pushed usually by lazy content creators that don't want to justify the fact that their build is only good if you spend 400 or 500 X on it. Usually when someone says your only solution to this build is just damage, either A, it's a build that's built around having Headhunter, or B, they're just being lazy over the fact that their build is really meant for a much higher budget than you're playing it at. Unfortunately, no, I cannot just block emotes from being typed, because YouTube is dumb like that. Because you type words that turn into emojis. And so if I block the words, it will time out anyone who types the words. But if they type the words with the thingy that turns it into an emoji, the emoji will just go through. YouTube's system is very dumb for that. Unfortunately. That was the first thing I tried when the bot started spamming months ago. I wish it had worked.
Such a dark glow.
Yeah, I'm not going to stand over there. Yeah, yes, you stand in all the other enemies. Good job, Mr. Phoenix.
Life is so brutal. Mine.
So much easier when all the enemies stack together and explode on each other. Guess I might as well do this since I'm here. I like how the Hydra was just over there doing stuff and just died to ignite. It's like, I don't even need to deal with you. You are not worth my time, Hydra.
One of my captors wore many faces, yet kept her true face hidden. Now, she cannot escape her true face.
Given how many formed I've run, I'm not sure if I'm actually going that positive in terms of profits. No. Come on, let me click the shrine. There we go. Clicking divine shrines is very hard when you don't have phasing. Oh, it's a king harbinger. See, I was going to run past if it was a normal one. The king, nah, we like money. We like our exalt drops. Watch, it's going to drop nothing here. Okay, Ancient Orb. I feel vindicated. Oh, see, that one you'd still be able to use Snow, because there's no way that the bots would become a channel member and help support me just to be able to spam my chat. And I mean, if they did, I'd still just ban them. And then at least I'd be getting money for my time. So yes, bots, please become channel members and do that before you spam and get banned. Somehow, I don't think the bots can hear me. I do not plan to play the gauntlet, no.
This one's uncommon might will
I have
make
no
you
idea what he said.
mortal
I
flesh
generally
so
assume that everything he said is either an over-exaggeration or he's just malding about something.
Twin
And so
terrorists.
I have absolutely no idea. Harbingers are not terrible value. Harbingers are one of the highest value things that you can pick on your atlas.
Life is so brittle.
I think the absolute highest would probably be Eater of World Altars.
Special.
And then it's really close, but I'd put Harbinger second. Then for third, third, probably strong boxes. Although the problem is then we have essences. Quicksilver. Oh wait, there's only one Quicksilver. Well, no, there's two, but this one's different. Oh god, they have the ugly bottled faith. I really do not like that bottled faith MTX. It looks so ugly. I'm pulling a lot less money these days from flasks because I haven't crafted them in a while. But crafted flasks sell for a lot.
One of my captors hid a beast within his heart. Now his beast is seen by all.
It really did. The problem with things like this is, what's
It's my
the most profit right now versus what's the most profit early on are totally different. And it's constantly changing. I think the more important takeaway is that you should have passives for Eater of World Altars. Note, I'm not using that at the moment because I'm specifically doing bossing. Plus, you should have passives for Harbingers. Plus, you should have passives for Essences. Plus, you should have passives for Strong Boxes. But as long as you're covering your bases there, you're probably good. I forget what the most expensive one that I sold was, but I think it was 4 or 5 exalts. And it was a 25% increased effect. I think 25% reduced mana cost of skills flask with 70% increased effect on it and 28% quality because I'd thrown it at Hillock before I rolled it. And someone paid, pretty sure it was 5x, even though the 28% quality did absolutely nothing. That's the exception, not the rule, though. Most of the flasks that I sold were between 50C and an Exalt. And you make a lot of money selling flasks between 50C and an Exalt, let me tell you. They don't all have to be the big sales. It would depend on why I'm going Wave of Conviction. Maybe, but also maybe not. Yeah, medium sales add up quickly. And they make you way more money than you would expect.
What a mysterious shadow. Rise and fight.
The possible contenders would be Mines and Cast on Crit for a hit-based Wave of Conviction.
Life is so brittle.
Hit-based Wave of Conviction will be a much more close-range skill, but that doesn't mean it's bad. And there's a lot of scaling options for both Cast on Crit and Mines. But I have no specific plans to play either one of those, at least for the time being. I do have another build idea that I'm probably going to do as my last build of the league. But it won't be Wave of Conviction. Though this build has done really, really well. I expected this to be a meme, like Penance Brand Ignite, where I'm like, I've put 100 Exalts into this, and it feels super mediocre. I'm going to play Hit-based Penance Brand, because Hit-based Penance Brand is just better Ignite Penance Brand. Instead, it's been really, really good. It's been everything I wanted from it.
Mortal flesh is so fallible. Such a thing been hiding. I simply must see more.
See if this is any good. It is not. It's very badly fractured in the worst way, so it gets deleted. $81. Slightly irritating, but it should be fine. Ooh, 104. Ew. Very irritating. Okay, let's run the more irritating one first.
The long-awaited event is finally here. Struggle or strangle.
I want Phoenix dead ASAP. Okay, Phoenix is dead. Now I can just kind of chill and kill the others. Though I should watch out for fizz damage because this is reduced aura effect, which means my determination and my Defiance Banner are both being nerfed. But we're dead. Or not we're dead. They're dead. Not anymore, that shield didn't. Now, have I been throwing Phoenix fragments when I shouldn't have been? Because I was trying to keep track of how many I got. I don't remember if I've actually, on autopilot, tossed any in here. I think I might have, though. I'm just going to grab this and put it over here. I'm pretty sure I didn't have any of those. Not that I'm being super scientific about this. Not that it necessarily matters. I was just curious how many I'd get. That is, I think, all of them. Maybe I have one more set. Yeah, I can make one more set. That shield got deleted so hard that it no longer has a family. Fine. 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 Yes. Well, okay. I'm basically... Oh, wait, no, I am. Right. I forgot that I ended up going 76 instead of 74 because I got Divergent Tempest Shield. Right. And then I switched around my nodes, and yes, I am fully block capped.
One of my captives wore many faces, yet kept her true face hidden.
Oi,
Now,
over
she
here.
cannot escape her true face.
Risky choice.
Is it risky, though? There we go.
For the cowgirl.
See, I don't think the witch would feel bad about that. Oh no, I got an echoing shrine. My flame dash is going to be so weird. Sales of items have definitely slowed down by a lot compared to 2 weeks ago. Well, if I were that shield, I wouldn't exist anymore. So luckily, I'm not that shield. I don't think I've ever gotten this involved in thinking about an item in Path of Exile before. Including significantly more valuable items that I've put a lot of actual time and effort into.
Dissected, smear it. Mortal flesh is so fallible. Feel your life trade away.
Nope. Weird lag spike. Especially weird because it doesn't seem to be on my end.
Hiding. I simply must see more.
At least according to OBS, my internet is perfectly fine. And I am at 0 skipped frames out of 686,000 due to any sort of lag, which I would say is a win. I plan to be making a gauntlet build roundup. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily aiming it at casuals, but I'm going to be aiming it a little bit more broadly at most players rather than just people who are very experienced or at the high end. So you bought 20 Black Scythe Blob books. You only made 530C. You took artifact remnants. So you say you made 530C. Is that after you turned in all of the artifacts at Tujin? Well, thanks for stopping by and have a good day or night.
One of my captors felt no emotion. He did not hesitate to inflict pain. Now, all he feels is intense, unstoppable agony.
Huey's being weirdly laggy. I don't know why. After this, I'm going to switch gateways. Because I suspect that this is a gateway thing. Yeah, and that's about where I'm going to be aiming it. They're not specifically going to be builds for new players, but they are going to be builds for people who aren't very experienced in the gauntlet. And as a little bit of a spoiler, that's why I'm going to be advising against playing Explosive Arrow in the gauntlet. Because while I do think it's a very good build, I don't think it's a very good build for gauntlet, given the turbo and given how fast enemies are going to reach you. Whereas something like Cold Dot would be quite good in the gauntlet because you're slowing enemies down to normal speed. My frame rate isn't... No, it's the latency that's going crazy here. It's not my frame rate at all. Unless the in-game report's just wrong, which could be. But I suspect this is the gateways being weird thing.
Such a dark glow. Grasp your mortality tightly. Of the infinite.
Gonna exit PoE quickly, because restarting it might also help. And log in through Texas. Yeah, Detonate Dead is not going to necessarily be as good in some cases as it was in past gauntlets, but it should be pretty solid. So just based on my own experiences running the logbooks, I feel like you should have gotten back between 1,000 and 1,500 chaos from that. When you were buying from Tujin, what sorts of things were you buying? Were you, for example, targeting only chaos orbs? Or were you going for things like small currencies, fuses, or ball orbs, scours, regrets, that kind of stuff? Admittedly, maybe prices have just shifted to be that unfavorable towards small currencies since I did all my testing, because it has been a little over 2 weeks now. And prices are constantly shifting. I don't think I'd really advise Explosive Trapper for Gauntlet. I think if you're going to play a Trapper, I'd still have to say Seismic Trapper. Maybe Lightning, maybe Ice. I don't think it's worth it at 1 Exalt for 4 uses. I think it's worth it at about half an Exalt for 4 uses. It kind of depends on
My excitement
all
is
the
gonna
pricing,
resist
but in general, you make about 30 to 50% more money if you take small stuff rather than just large stuff. All right, my thing's full. But unfortunately, prices do shift over time, and it could be possible that prices have just shifted in an extremely unfavorable way.
One of my captors hid a beast within his heart.
Yeah, I'd just run more on a budget sextant as well. But again, that depends on the price of the logbooks, because when I did them, even, I should have corrupted that, even Danig books were only around half an X each. And if they're, say, a full X now, then getting the additional value from the sextant could be worth it. Oh, everything. Okay, you shouldn't be buying everything. There's a lot of really low value stuff that won't be worth it. You should aim for something like 1 chaos per transaction, unless it's really cheap. So you shouldn't buy things like armor scraps, and you shouldn't necessarily buy everything in the vendor. So what I'm thinking happened is you may have burned through your artifacts too quickly. See if I get anything good. No, I didn't. That's impressively bad, actually. Guess I'll go back for 8 alts. I don't think I'll use them, though, so I guess it doesn't matter. I'm guessing you didn't happen to write down everything you bought and how many artifacts you had. I'd be really curious about those numbers, and I might be able to give a little bit of a better picture if I had them.
Such a dark glow. I cannot.
But it definitely
quite
sounds like
resist
you
the
made a lot
assault.
less than I would have expected.
Tight tethers.
Have to wait for the wave to dissipate.
Struggle or strangle. Time bends to my will.
Oh, I was hoping he'd just phase there. Oh, he did. Okay.
Tight tethers. Struggle or strangle.
Yeah, occasionally he will be sneaky with bad deals.
Grasp your mortality tightly.
Though it is unusual, I would say. But yeah, you do have to watch out for a couple things like that.
Struggle or strangle.
Okay, well. Also, annulment orbs and divine orbs. He will often sell them at abysmal prices because they are relatively rare items in the objective sense of Path of Exile. They're not particularly valuable because they're common relative to the number of players using them in the, I guess, more subjective sense.
Combatants.
That stretches the sanity of the mind.
And now for this.
Let the blood dance begin. Resist the assault.
I feel like a lot of these streams where I'm like, I should do something interesting on stream rather than just run maps. I'm going to do all my Shaper Guardians. I'm just going to turn into some random pseudo calculations of, hey, I did this for this many hours. How much money did I make? Where it's not super scientific. It's not, this is exactly what, but it's not nothing either. We're at a weird point where prices just kind of go whack. We may. I don't think I'll be around in, well, I'll be around, but I don't think I'll be caring about the price of Exalts in a week. All right, so that was 13 Shaper sets. Okay, so you got 40 rerolls from 20 logbooks. I feel like that might be the problem then. Getting 90C in value from 40 rerolls seems low to me. Because if I'm remembering correctly, what was my data set? I think my data set was about 120. 1 second. Yeah, my data set was 113 rerolls, and I got back 8.6 exalts from that. So you should have gotten back closer to 600 chaos from around 40 rerolls, based on averages. Now, 40 is a relatively small sample size, so I could also see it being that you didn't hit, for example, Exalt Shards, Ancient Orbs. You maybe didn't hit item level 86 Breach Rings or other things that added quite a bit of value. But 40 rerolls from 20 logbooks seems very, 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 like, worryingly low to me. Are you alking your logbooks? So this was 22 Phoenix. That's 10, 22, 20 Minotaur. $20 Chimera. And 18 Hydra. Which is really evenly distributed. I think X were around 160 when I did my calculations. And so yeah, I was getting about 7.6C from my data sets, between 7 and 8C per reroll. So 7C, that sounds exactly right. The prices of Chaos and Exalt have shifted, slightly favoring Exalts, which probably does drive down the profit from Tujin just a little bit. So yeah, that 7C in profit per reroll sounds right. Yeah, you can get some innate variance. If you have a boss, you'll get more. If you don't have a boss, you'll get less. I think 20 to 40 per logbook for Black Scythe could be a little on the ambitious side. I think it's more like 10 to 40. But 40 from 20 logbooks is definitely well below what you should be expecting. I'm guessing you might have done them without alking them. That would explain why you got so little. I guess in theory, there's just random variance and you could be that unlucky. But I doubt it's that. That seems too excessively unlucky. The other thing would be potentially hitting too many chests and not enough runic monsters. Because runic monsters are your best source of both artifacts and rerolls. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.7 Maven's Writs. So I'll have to calculate later, and that took, what? We're at 3 hours and 26 minutes. So about 3 hours and 15 minutes of actually running them. Yeah, from everything you're describing for all of that, it sounds like you were doing it right. So I'm a little bit confused, to be honest. I had messaged them when they had put this up for a little bit less than it was worth, which they had put it up for 20x. It's worth about 28. Well, 28 to 40, I should say. 28, there's one listed offline for 28. I'm just going to buy this because then I'm done with having to deal with searching these stupid jewels. Searching them has been very frustrating recently because the supply is too low. And with the declining player base, prices are fluctuating from literally 1 exalt for a thing one day and 100x for the same thing the next day. This is Farshot. Cool. Now I have that and I don't have to think about it. So I'm going to put this here for what I plan to play next. Yeah, I mean, breaking around 2 would lower your overall profits a little bit, but not by that much. Do I have any good Black Scythe layouts, just as an example? Forest Ruins is pretty good. No, wrong thing. Additional suffix, number of monster markers. I have a few bless orbs. See, I'm just making it worse. And 30-30, close enough. Upper percentile. $78. Cannot read. God damn it. I don't want to do cannot regen. 62. Close enough.
Well met. The landmarks described in this logbook don't match anything.
All right,
Come
so
on now.
let's see what I've got.
Got all day.
Not a particularly spectacular layout, but not a bad one either. So I just look for a good starting point. Usually right off of one of the sides is a good starting point. You can't quite reach over here. You can always reach here. So this can be a good starting point. And you can also reach over here. So sometimes this is a good starting point. And you ideally want to hit things with value. So this is pretty good. Essences are not the best, but not bad. I'm actually going to miss the immune to curse just because I don't want to deal with that early on when I am a curse pop build. And normally I wouldn't target these early on, but that's all there is here. And so as I continue to path, that's awkward placing with the terrain, but close enough. Try to hit as many of these as I can. I always want quantity of artifacts, but ideally I want dropped by monsters like this rather than in chests. And everything's just out of range, which is really awkward. So I guess I'll do this, and I'll try to hit both of these and fail because it's just slightly out of... Yeah, it's just slightly out. So this is going to be a fairly mediocre one so far. Yeah. My flame dash also failed. See, artifacts dropped by monsters. That's what I was aiming for. Except, I don't know that I wanted to come over here. I probably should have looped through this back area to come over potentially up to here, because these can be pretty good. Normally, I would go much faster than this. Normally, I wouldn't worry about, you know, am I going to even investigate this? But since I have 9 left, I'm just not going to worry about that. And I'm just going to come this way. And at this point, I've hit a good number of remnants, so I'm mostly just looking for loot stuff. And, oh, it's icky here. I did that very badly, but it should be fine. It's not that I necessarily mind rating an Atlas skill tree, but it would be better to put it in Discord. Because I almost guarantee that no matter how you link it, YouTube's going to eat the link. Whenever there's a boss, you'll get a lot more rerolls. So this is going to be less loot than I would have gotten otherwise, because no boss. Wait, did I just get... I think I did. I think I got slightly displaced there by the terrain. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying. Stacked decks are always pretty good money. Gonna come over here and kill these guys. Some GCPs are also good money. Hey, thank you. I am glad you enjoy them. Then I come down into here. Clear out everything. Click the text, but doesn't really matter. All right. And so that was a very mediocre to average logbook. I got 7 exotic coinage from it. Other notable things include an Orb of Regret, some stacked decks, and a Diviner's Incubator. Oh, and a couple GCPs. Just the exotic coinage, when I go over to Tujin, will turn into more money than the logbook.
Got some more?
So I'll use 7 total rerolls here. All right, Breach Ring, 85.
It's boring if you take my
Jeweler's Orbs. This is not worth paying exceptional normally. I'm going to do it, though, just because I have so many of them.
Not even going to try to haggle. Now, it's boring if you take my first offer.
Spite's a pretty good deal. You'll probably want to haggle on these because Greater is the bottleneck.
Seems reasonable. Got some more?
Okay, so that's 2.
If you want to just up and buy it like that, fine.
Oh, that's Gilded Harbinger.
Not quite. Seems reasonable. Not even going to try to haggle.
Not good, not good, not good. Serrated Fossils, but it's grand, so sure.
Got some more? Yeah.
Again, normally you would not want to buy this. I should probably put the you don't want to buy it separate, but I'm going to because I have so many of these because I've done too much expedition.
Always a pleasure. Now, it's boring if you take my first offer. Shiny coins, aren't they? If you want to just up and buy it like that, fine. Not even going to try to haggle.
Okay, that's agility.
Shiny
I don't
coins,
really care about agility.
It's boring if you take my first offer. Now it's boring if you take my first
Not
offer.
good.
Got some more? Yeah, if you just want to up and buy it like that, fine.
You probably buy Ulnatul
It's
Splinters
boring
still?
if you
Not
take my
100%
first
sure on
offer.
that one. That was a questionable buy.
Not even gonna try to haggle. Shiny coins, aren't
And
they?
that's
Not
7.
even gonna try to haggle. Not even gonna try to haggle.
Alright, and the rest of that's junk. So obviously, incredibly high variance from such a low sample size. But I got several breach rings. Yeah, Tujin gets so mad. I got about 100 jewelers. Oh no. I got, let's see, 12 stack decks, but some of them technically you shouldn't have bought at the price that I did. A Gilded Harbinger Scarab, which is I think 10 Chaos Orbs. Couple of stacks of alts, 14 raw chaos. So overall, did I make my money back on the 7 rerolls? Easily and then some. I probably made my money back not even counting the stuff over here. And that's just a quick and dirty example. And then, oh right, I forgot to add a proper capture for stuff. So for anyone who is not in the Discord, if you want to see the Atlas passive tree, you'll have to look in the Discord. I'm going to glance at it quickly. Looks like Alva missions and then Blight stuff. Yup. Beyond Demons. So we're doing Beyond farming with Blight farming. And then we come around. So why don't you have 1.4 Spores on the Wind? Is that a misclick? It also looks like you're doing quantity of items and effective modifiers. So you're either MFing or juicing. Harby stuff, Buried Knowledge, yep. Harby stuff looks good. Unspeakable Offensive is very good. Flash Breach is good. Rampant Growth and Shadow of Hunger is good. Yep, this looks like a solid tree. Unless you actually like Alva, you could easily rework it a little bit though and go through Animal Companion and save some points. You'd save quite a lot of points by pathing. Actually, I guess you'd go adjacent map drop chance, adjacent map drop chance, adjacent map drop chance. You drop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh no. You drop 6, and then you have to take a couple more for Einhar mission chance. That would be 6 again. So you've dropped 3, and then you drop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you drop 8 total points, which you could reallocate elsewhere, which I will post in the Discord as an example in case you're interested in that. And so that should give you some extra points to play with. In terms of getting value from Beyond, you're going to run Beyond on every map, and you should get value from it. I don't know exactly how much without MFing or super heavy investment. I just haven't tested that enough since they removed NEM 3. But hopefully that helps. Now what am I going to do? Am I going to run Shaper? No, I'm not going to run Shaper. I'm sure Shaper's super profitable, but I just have zero desire to do that many Shapers now that I have, oh god, 20 sets. You know what? You know what's fun? Since I'm going to be wrapping the stream up soonish, let's have some fun and run a couple of Cirruses. That sounds fun.
Did you really think this would work?
Cirrus, please. Please, we want to help you. Don't do anything hasty.
I seem to be getting that weird lag again.
Flicking a pest.
No,
Maybe Texas was not the right choice.
How boring.
It's weird
and
because
small.
either OBS...
You want the Atlas? Take it.
Oh.
It's yours. But Orith, I will burn to the ground.
Perhaps the suffering of my fellow citizens will finally stir something.
Huh. Yeah, I'm not sure why I'm getting some weird lag right now. Let's see if it gets me killed on Cirrus.
What's this? A real challenge? You've finally caught my attention.
Oh.
Die.
Well, definitely standing in that would be bad.
What's the point?
No, I should go over here. Yep, have a good night. I'm going to be calling it after this boss fight, I think.
Rain of stars! Why resist?
No, I'm going to step back for just a second here.
Creation
The others found
itself.
strength in their projections. They became reliant.
Well, I'm glad you enjoy.
I am not so foolish.
All right, he's burning. Yeah, he's burning.
Die.
No, I didn't mean to dodge that.
Guilty crumble.
See, I switched to Texas because I was having issues on Canada East. But it still feels a little bit off. So
Really interesting enough to warrant all this
I'm not
pain.
quite sure what's going on. Yeah.
Why run? What's the point?
But I was going to call it shortly after this anyway. Yep. The bots are definitely irritating.
Itself.
On the edge of death, my heart races.
That's something that Twitch also failed at. They also failed at getting rid of bots. Alright. I'm just gonna... Oh, perfect. See, while you're hitting me, I can get a bunch of really nice ignite damage in on you, and then...
There's
No.
only horror.
Dead boss.
Something.
Get wrecked, Cirrus. And let's do a little bit of gambling, because I can afford to lose these gloves. That was a very little bit of gambling. And so, with that, thank you, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed. This will be the end of a stream for today. I may be back later. Well, not later today, but I may be back later this week. We'll see.